Well, that's what I said. So this, so this will be me. Now we should look for the front.
Do you want to use the podium or no?
I'll sit down and be comfortable. All 11 of us, we can take quorum.
Whoa.
Hopefully nobody backs out.
Let me just adjust. For some reason, the camera's not.
their national trip. So, and soon we will be sending our Congress kids to
And how
represent.
many are going to Congress?
17. Amanda Brown Clougherty and her husband Sean will be chaperoning them. So that's pretty exciting as well. And actually next year I will be sitting on one of the committees for one of the design committees
Nice.
for her. So
Excellent.
I'll be bringing back some good information.
Yeah. Does anyone else have other celebrations to share? Thank you very much, Miss Ruth, for that one.
Oh, you're welcome. The Cecil County and Ellen's 4-H Club also sponsored the Cecil County Apple and Pumpkin Fest. And we had children bring baked goods and crafts and adults also. And we had judges and had some wonderful recipes brought in. And we did crafts and gave the children little prizes and ribbons. And we've done this now for like the Apple Fest is a new thing. We've done the apple. We've done the Avery for about 10 or 15 years, but the Apple thing is a new thing. We've only done a few years, but it's well received and an exciting time for the children.
Excellent. That's a neat idea. And that's the Calvert Boys and Girls Club, correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Fantastic. If anyone thinks of other celebrations that they would like to share, please say something, or there's a portion at the end of the agenda where we can certainly share those as well.
It wasn't Jack, by the way. It was a fake name.
We will now go into
It was my
Secretary's
husband.
report when
It's
Miss
not Jack.
Mary is ready.
I was gonna say, just for the horse judging, I know from Anne Arundel County, the team of Lexi Solly and Carly Gray got first in demonstration, and I think the horse judging team got second.
I think something like that,
And
yeah.
one of our members was from Anne Arundel County.
I want to say
Great.
pathology got 7. I mean, they did pretty
Yeah,
well.
they did
I mean,
really well.
overall.
I think that, let me pull it up
Yeah.
again, because one of the girls from my county, they got first in, like the Eastern, I don't know, don't quote me on it until I bring it up, but they got first out of 18 teams, and then she got 10th individual. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see. At the 4-H horse team, so at the horse bowl team got first out of 18 teams, and then they went to the nationals, and I think they placed in the top 10.
That's
Nice.
fantastic. Well, it certainly says something about all of the time that our coaches are putting into working with the youth. So if any of our coaches of judging teams are with us today, I certainly would like to thank you for all of the time and dedication that you give to your individual programs. Any other celebrations? Excellent. What a great way to start our meeting. Miss Mary, when you're ready.
The annual meeting of the Maryland 4-H Volunteers Association was held on Sunday, November 22nd, 2015, at the Maryland 4-H Volunteer Forum in Ocean City, Maryland. Prior to the start of the meeting, door prizes were given out. Each attendee who turned in a form survey received a ticket for the drawings. Welcome. At 9:10 a.m., President Arlene Lance welcomed everyone to the meeting. She thanked those who made a donation to help a needy family in Garrett County. Opening remarks, Dr. Jeff Howard, Maryland State 4-H Program Leader. Dr. Stephen Wright, Associate Dean, was unable to attend the forum, so Dr. Jeff Howard gave the opening remarks. The new Dean, Dr. Craig Beyruti, just started 2 weeks ago. 3 dates have been scheduled for a meet and greet with Dean Beyruti from 3 to 5:30 p.m. First one will be on Tuesday, December 1st at College Park. Second one will be on Monday, December 14th at the Western Maryland Research and Education Center, and on Friday, December 18th in Easton. Dr. Howard also talked about the cluster trainings that will be held in 2016. He thanked everyone for a successful forum and for investing their weekend in the 4-H program. 2016 Volunteer Regional Trainings. Jen Hiscock, Committee Chair, gave an update on future trainings. Regional cluster trainings and Maryland 4-H Congress will be held in even years, and a forum or other state training will be held in the odd years. We are also bringing in non-traditional programs as well. The committee is comprised of the following organizations and members: Maryland 4-H Volunteers Association, Jen Hiscock and Kara Barnhart. Collegiate 4-H, Levi Lance and Jessica Sizemore. State Council, Maryland 4-H All-Stars. The Maryland Association of Extension 4-H Agents, Kim Dixon. State 4-H Office, Dr. Jeff Howard and Sandy Corridon. If anyone has suggestions for training, let the committee know. Maryland 4-H State Council. Gabrielle Corey, State Council President, reported on the 2016 Maryland 4-H Congress. The structure will be similar to a real college experience. There will be tracks on communication and leadership, animal sciences, engineering and technology, and performing and visual arts. Gabrielle went over the proposed schedule. Maryland 4-H Congress will be held on June 26th and will be open to senior 4-Hers ages 13 to 18. Gabrielle invited all teams to attend the State Council meeting at 11 a.m. Call to order. President Arlene Lance called the meeting to order. Roll call and Secretary's report. Mary Thomas had sign-in sheets on each of the tables and reminded everyone to please sign in for attendance. Mary read the minutes from the last annual meeting held on November 23rd, 2014. Brittany Hill moved to accept the minutes as corrected, and Maggie Rogers seconded the motion. The motion carried. Correspondence. Mary Thomas read a thank you card from Sue Leatherman, thanking the Volunteers Association for awarding her a scholarship for the 2014 Northeast Regional Volunteer Forum. Treasurer's report. Gina DeGrenia gave the Treasurer's report as follows. The Volunteers Association General Account. Beginning balance, $3,425.10. Ending balance, $3,040.10. The annual volunteer and team form account, beginning balance, $23,253.04. Ending balance, $45,776.11. The NERF account, $18,712.04. Ending balance, $18,712.04. Angus Payne Volunteer Development account, $67,070.54, and that was the same as the ending balance. The preliminary report for the forum fundraisers: silent auction, $1,598. Putt for 4-H, $260. We had 57 people participate in Putt for 4-H, but still have to go through the pre-registrations for the final total. Meredith Smith moved to accept the treasurer's report, and Cheryl Hill seconded the motion. The motion carried. Reports and unfinished business. Association fundraisers. Ellen Larimore reported that the association is selling stained glass clovers and Wendell August Forge custom and printed ornaments and trays through the Maryland 4-H Foundation. The items will be available for sale at the 4-H Gala. Sandy Corridon added that if you would like to purchase any items, you can contact the 4-H educator. Gina DeGrania also reported that the association is selling 4-H card magnets. Clubs and counties can purchase magnets from the association for $3 each and sell them for $5 as a fundraiser. If you would like to purchase any magnets, please see Gina. 2015 Volunteer Awards Committee. Ellen Larimore, committee chair, reported on the volunteer awards. The committee spent 3 to 4 weeks working on updating applications to get them posted online and is now working on the score sheets. The committee members include Ellen Larimore, Sue Leatherman, Meredith Smith, Ruth Brown, Jane Burke, Hermetta Hudson, and Mary Thomas. There were a total of 42 nominations received. The winners will be announced at the Maryland 4-H Gala in January. Ellen thanks Sandy Corridon and Maria Razzi from the State 4-H office for all their help in getting the forms posted online. New business, Constitution and bylaws revisions. Jen Hiscock went over the proposed changes to the Constitution and bylaws. Young Alumni Liaison. Add a Young Alumni Liaison to the Executive Committee in the Constitution. Add a Young Alumni Committee to the standing committees and add the duties of both the position and the committee to the bylaws. Jen explained that the Young Alumni Liaison will be chosen through an application and interview process. The position is for a 2-year term and will be rotated out the same time as the president and vice president. The Young Alumni Liaison will work with the State 4-H office and executive committee to welcome new volunteers between the ages of 18 to 25 to help ease the transition from 4-H member to volunteer. The goal is to get a younger voice on the executive committee. Financial advisor. Add the duties of the financial advisor to the bylaws. Hermetta Hudson suggested we have 2 young alumni positions. Cheryl Hill recommended appointing them in alternate years. Hermetta Hudson moved to amend the proposed changes to include 2 young alumni positions, with the first position be appointing in 2006 and the other one in 2017. Jane Burke seconded the motion. The motion carried. Further discussion followed. Suggestions from the membership included providing them with scholarship or stipend, reimbursing them for their expenses, and providing oversight to ensure they perform at a certain level. Jen Hiscock moved to correct the Constitution and bylaws as made in the previous approved motion and accept the rest of the changes in their entirety. Brittany Hill seconded the motion. The motion carried. 2016 meeting dates. The meeting dates for 2016 will be determined by the new president. The upcoming dates on the agenda were corrected as follows. Sunday, January 17th, Maryland State 4-H Gala. Saturday, April 30th, Maryland Day at UMD College Park. Arlene brought up that we need a committee for Maryland Day. Mary volunteered to chair the committee again, and she briefly talked about what the association does at Maryland Day. Jane Burke and Sue Neller also volunteered to serve on the committee. 2016 officer election for president. Arlene Lance gave the report for the office of president. Two names were presented, Jane Burke and Jen Hiscock. Arlene asked if there were any other nominations from the floor for the office of president. There being none, Brittany Hill moved to close the nominations for president, and Meredith Smith seconded the motion. The motion passed. Jane Burke and Jen Hiscock each gave a speech before the membership. Arlene went over the voting procedures. Each county or unit gets 2 votes, and each county or unit gets a ballot. If you have one person from your county present, you only get 1 vote. If you have 2 or more people present from your county or unit, you get 2 votes. Use the yellow ballot for the office of president. The ballots were collected, and Dr. Howard and John English counted the votes. While the ballots were being counted, the association moved on to the next agenda item. Arlene later announced that Jen Hiscock is the new president. Arlene thanked Jane for running for office. Volunteer questions, concerns, and celebrations. Cheryl Hill brought up that the association is collecting name tags so we can recycle and reuse them, and asked for the members to leave their name tag on the registration table. Arlene Lance introduced our guests from Naval Station Rota, Spain, Hannah Coonsey and Ruben Corres. Hannah thanked us for the opportunity to attend the forum and for the warm welcome. They learned a lot over the weekend and are excited about taking back what they learned and implementing in Rota. Sandy Cordon presented Hannah and Ruben with a Wendell August Forge ornament. Arlene also reported that Maryland has been selected to host the Navy 4-H STEM camp again this year. Tom Tate talked about the National 4-H History Preservation Project. He is working on mapping 4-H historical spots and significant 4-H events. He had 23 people from 11 counties sign up. Mr. Tate thanked Sandy Cordon for inviting him to the forum to talk about the project. 2016 officer election for vice president. Arlene Lance gave the report for the office of vice president. There were no names presented, so Arlene asked if there were any nominations from the floor for the office of vice president. There were 3 nominations from the floor, Jane Burke, Kara Barnhart, and Sue Neller. Meredith Smith moved to close the nominations for vice president, and Wes Corey seconded the motion. The motion passed. Jane Burke, Kara Barnhart, and Sue Neller each gave a speech before the membership. Arlene added that the voting procedures used for president will also apply for the office of vice president, except to use the green ballot for the office of vice president. The ballots were collected, and Dr. Howard and John English counted the votes. While the ballots were being counted, the association moved on to the next agenda item. Arlene later announced that Kara Barnhart is the new vice president. Arlene thanked Jane and Sue for running for office. 2015 Officer Appreciation Gifts. Arlene Lance presented gifts to all the outgoing officers and thanked them for all their hard work. Ellen Larimore presented Arlene with a gift of winter pansies. Other business. Arlene Lance reported that volunteers are needed to help at Maryland 4-H Congress to serve as chaperones and floor resident assistants, and in hospitality, registration, and graphic design. There will be a link on the State 4-H website under the State Council page. Meredith Smith brought up that we need to have a discussion about the forum registration process. Arlene asked her to please note it on the forum survey. Installation of association officers for 2016. Ellen Larimore installed the new officers. President Jen Hiscock, Vice President Kara Barnhart, Secretary Mary Thomas, Treasurer Gina DeGrenia, Past President Arlene Lance, and Financial Advisor Cheryl Hill. There being no further business, Cheryl Hill moved to adjourn the meeting, and Suni Grosco seconded the motion. The motion passed. The meeting was adjourned at 10:58 a.m.
Thank you, Miss Mary. Does anyone see additions or corrections that we need to make to the minutes?
Other than her adding Smith. I think that was it.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes as read?
I so moved.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Miss Gina, Treasurer's Report?
This year's treasurer's report, in the general account, we have $2,766.10. The volunteer form account is $27,709.77. And the Angus Payne account is $62,653.07.
Excellent. And have we received all of the money from the magnets that we were tracking down?
All but one.
All but one. Okay. Excellent. Any questions about the treasurer's report? The next agenda item is Dr. Howard and Jamie. We would like to ask you to talk about the Maryland 4-H program as well as volunteerism.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, I can do that. I felt like the best investment of our time was, of course, Jamie will have some updates very specific to volunteers, but I did want to give you some updates about staffing around the state, kind of the status of that, some implications of the reality of our current world and what that may have on us, just for to be as transparent as possible. So I'll start with that. I did want to kind of alert that we are, as an organization, University of Maryland Extension, certainly monitoring our current budget situation very closely. Anytime we have a substantial shift in government structure, whether it's a party structure, however you want to think about it, it causes a lot of pause. An example we have in our state been historically, or most recently in most recent history, held the Democratic Party held the government. And a couple of years ago when we had a Republican governor who came in, that came with a different set of focuses and so forth. So it's not a political statement, that's just factually a reality. So it caused us, part of the individual, our governor had ran principled on tax rollbacks. And so we as a state set the budget based on the projected tax revenue. And then when a different governor was elected in and had a different perspective on budget, you theorize that we're about to perhaps not have the same amount of money that we would have. So the university and all state agencies had to put the brakes on. So we were in a hiring freeze, a spending freeze, a travel freeze, and so forth, until some of that sorted out. And that took a number of months for that to happen. So we were unable to hire for it was almost 7 months, I believe, or so. And then that began to lift. There were still some limitations and restrictions, but anyway, that began to settle and so forth. So now that our national election has gone the way that it has, factually, extension and education in general tends to perform better under a Democratic setting party. That's not my opinion. That's a fact of the way that budgets are often allocated. There's a more robust support of education in general and so forth. So that reality is causing some pause, coupled with we have about a $250 million shortfall in our state as we understand it. And then President-elect Trump has been vocal about putting a federal hiring freeze in place. So our primary industry in our state is the federal government, second to agriculture. So while our federal appropriation is just 7% of our budget, the reality is that our tax base in our state is very dependent on the federal government and the 600,000 plus employees that are just in the perimeter around the district. And so that's a huge potential adjustment in tax base. So as some of that settles out, at this juncture, we have not been alerted that we're going to be in a hiring freeze, but we are monitoring that. I'm speaking to the senior administrative team of Extension, and but it's caused me to want to get all these positions filled as quick as possible, because I don't know what the next 6 months will bring and so forth. So that's part of the reality that we're faced with, and just trying to monitor that, and being mindful that there's a potential for some shifts and so forth, and I have no idea what the restrictions would be or anything. That would just be too crystal ballish right now. But and it could be that we don't receive anything like that. I'm not sure at this time. But we do have a considerable number of openings in 4-H youth development across the state. Pardon me, speaking to faculty positions. So I did want to draw attention to those. We currently have 2 open here in our host county that where we're at, a number of us physically today, and I recognize there's others joining virtually, but we do have a tenure track position here in Carroll. We also have a professional track position that is currently being searched. My understanding is the search is still ongoing as part of that process, and so we're hopeful that would come to some closure in pretty soon. We have 3 faculty positions here. We're very fortunate, and in addition to some seasonal program assistant type support and so forth. So it's a very robust, very large program here, a great deal to manage, and so it's very challenging for one individual to take all of that. So we're looking for that to at least our tenure, or rather professional track position, to move forward in short order. We also have open positions now in Baltimore County. We also have one open in Charles County. Our Charles County position, we had a national search for that. We were unsuccessful in filling that position in Charles County. We had, I call them, I don't know, to use a fishing analogy, we had an amazing person on the line, and then we lost the hook or something. Well, you can tell I'm a fish much. I don't know what to say there, but anyway. So at the nth hour, they pulled out. So that was unfortunate. But so that is currently in the process to be re-released, and we'll continue down that road to hopefully get that filled. We also have a position open in Washington County that we're adjusting. It was most recently staffed as a professional track position. But the way our tenure track positions are set up around the state are, we have a certain number that each program area has, which is 16. And so what I did in the last staffing plan was we concentrated the majority of those tenure track positions up and down our population corridor, that I call it. So there's 5 million of us from the district up to Baltimore City, and then the other million are roughly 500,000 and change on the shore and 500,000 and change more out west. So the concentration of the tenure track positions are there. So if we had the unfortunate situation where we did receive a significant budget reduction, that would be our tenure track positions are what holds the organization together. And so at minimum that we would continue to maintain funding for those. So we have to be very strategic in how those are placed. Ag follows a different approach, FCS a different approach, and so forth, but based on population, that's where the majority of ours are. I draw attention to this because in the last staffing plan, we had 2 positions that were structured to be in the Western cluster, which is Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett. And so in my perfect world, if I were trying to strategically place positions, then I would want them bookended. But my reality was they weren't bookended, the tenure track positions. There was one in Garrett and there's one in Garrett. Did I just say Garrett? Allegheny and one in Garrett. So with Washington County vacating when Jamie transitioned positions, it was an opportunity to take a look at that differently. So what happened was we actually this last year, we did a reassignment for our tenured position. We have a full professor or principal agent individual in the 4-H position in Garrett County, Ann Sherrard. And Ann was reassigned. She has about half of her assignment is to manage our 4-H camp property in Western Maryland that we own, our state 4-H camp. Then a portion of her position is allocated for, we have a very large grant with Lockheed Martin, And we have a very large grant with the Office of Juvenile Justice. It's a mentoring focused grant. So she was reassigned to take on those responsibilities. So that freed up a tenure track position. And then we used the salary savings from all the grants to then hire a professional track back in Garrett. So with that said, we have the opportunity now, because this is, if you think visionary from a futuristic perspective and to try to eventually get these bookend, we're filling the Washington County position with the tenure track. So that is in process. The way the tenure track process works is if those positions come open, there's actually a 2-week window of opportunity for reassignment request. So that will be done, and an individual that's in a current tenured or tenure track position can apply to me for consideration for reassignment. They still do a presentation, and the public's able to be engaged in that and so forth, and then ultimately we'll make a decision about that. And if nobody pursues that, then it goes out across open to everybody. So that's the direction we're going there. We also have an evolution of our program in St. Mary's County. We have, in most recent, probably the last 8 to 9 years, we've had 2 positions that were program assistants. And so one of the program assistants recently retired. And so we're looking to evolve one of the positions there into a professional track position. So it'll be a faculty rank position that would come along. And I'm working very closely with our area extension director there, trying to get the monies put together and so forth to try to make that happen. But our hope is that would create a little more permanency when we think about that into the future. So we have a recent transfer in Caroline County. We have a tenure track position there. And we did have an individual that was internal to the organization that requested a reassignment. And we did make the decision to uphold or to honor that. So her name is Dr. Melissa Welch. She started officially November about a week ago, roughly or so, to that assignment. So she will join the 4-H team over on the our Midshore cluster, and she moved out of family and consumer science actually. She's been with us in the organization for about 2 years plus, but she has a very strong history with 4-H. She works with the state had a connection with the state 4-H headquarters in Indiana when she was working on her PhD. Then also was very well connected, grew up in 4-H, but then also was a classroom teacher and had a close connection with our FFA program. So she'll be transitioning there. The last one that I'll mention is we do have a coordinator position that's open in the state 4-H office. It supports our equine and environmental science program, more specifically to shooting sports. So that position does work very closely with our volunteers. That position is a coordinating component for our state horse advisory committee and our state shooting sports advisory committee, which is made up of volunteers. So I thought you might have interest in that. That is, hopefully we'll be hitting the streets in short order. I continue to say that because it's one thing to get it into the ETERP system, but the ridiculous bureaucracy that we have to deal with, it sometimes, it takes months, unfortunately. But we are getting it put back into the system as quickly as I can, because remember me mentioned about those freezes? The thing is, if you're in the system and you're to a certain point, then you can continue that. So my push is to get us to that point, so that even if it's not filled, that should we receive that those freezes that could potentially be coming, then we could still continue to move forward with those. So those are the big ones as far as from a staffing perspective. We're working very closely with our educators as they come on for an enhanced onboarding process. I'm very proud of that. I work closely with one of our area extension directors on putting that together, and I'm hopeful that our reality is we are bringing folks in and we're hiring them with a broader range of experiences and so forth, and they're not necessarily in 4-H. So it's a challenge. There's some positive to that in regard to being able to broaden our scope and really focus on hiring professionals who are true youth development focused individuals. But with that, it may come without that inherent experience. So trying to get that blended with onboarding and so forth is sometimes very challenging, but I'm proud of the process that we're putting into place and getting them onboarded as quickly as we can. And part of that onboarding is helping them to understand what the Volunteer Association is and those connections and how to support their volunteers in the field and so forth. So I make sure that we certainly highlight that and cover it. So that's the big parts of faculty assignments and so forth, or filling that maybe needed.
Did you want to mention the events coordinator position?
Yes. So we also had a position that evolved. We had an individual that worked with our national trips, our in-state events and so forth. Kathy Porterfield most recently had been occupying that position. Last year, I'll quickly tell you, our educators in polling them felt strongly. I sought counsel when we had our retreat also among the volunteer group, chatting with that group about their interest in specialist positions to support the 4-H program. And so with that feedback, it led to the decisions to staff our state faculty members and our state specialists, as we most recently did. So we have a specialist working in research and evaluation and professional development. We have one in our program development process and structure and so forth, and working with curricular systems. And then, of course, volunteer and volunteerism. One of the outliers, though, that I heard from our educator team, and that was certainly supported by our retreat conversation, was that there was a need to enhance an individual to connect us more strongly with risk management, with all of the legal aspects. Unfortunately, we're in a very litigious society, and I'm threatened to be sued at least 3 or 4 times a month. It's just common to me now. It's just like water off my back. And so, and I'll tell you, we at the president's office, unfortunately. And so that's our reality. So having an individual to come in to support our educator team and also our volunteers was significant and important. There's also such complexity with chartering and giving name and emblem authorization and so forth. So we needed some continuity with that and an individual targeted person to do that. So what we ended up doing, I actually evolved my support staff, my direct support staff, or my assistant, had made the decision to transition into a more of a part-time situation from this is, I think, our 3rd time to quasi-retire. So anyway, and she's 70 years old and she's still at it. So, and she is fabulous. Yeah, she is fabulous. So, but anyway, she did want to transition a little differently. So I took advantage of that to evolve the position where we made it a coordinator-related job. So they're still in an administrative coordinating role with me. But under the umbrella of my role, and it's Kathy Porterfield is what I'm getting to, who transitioned over into that role. Kathy was career military. She was chief of staff for the base commandants where she worked. She had she has a long history of working very closely in an administrative capacity. But she also has a criminal justice degree. She had a private business where she did background checks for defense. The Department of Defense. She did that for a number of years. So she's got all kinds of experiences to be able to support us in that role. So she did transition to that position. And with that, then left the events coordinator, back to the original point. So we did do a statewide search for that. There was a committee that vetted them. And then ultimately, they have, we have hired an individual that will be coming in. There's awareness to that. My struggle is contracts aren't completed and filed and so forth, so we're not to the point to be able to share that. And once that is, then those that had applied would be notified. So it would be inappropriate to go into much more detail. But we are looking to finalize that. And we'll have that individual should join us mid-January or so and work very closely. And again, there'll be strong connections with so many of our volunteers who travel with our national teams around and help to support our volunteers who support us in that regard. So thanks for that reminder.
Oh, no problem. And the reason I wanted you to mention that is because there is that great tie with a lot of the volunteers through the coaching and that kind of stuff. But also because there are things that are coming up in my world that I hope to collaborate with our events coordinator in terms of making things a little bit more consistent and cohesive for our volunteers, as well as with Kathy Porterfield with risk management in terms of that too. And I just wanted to give you a little overview of what I've been doing for all of our volunteers since I started. And that's the big thing, is that my main objective is to review our current process policies, all of that paperwork, in order to find a way to make it more streamlined, strengthen it, make it more consistent, cohesive. And a lot of that may have to do with risk management in terms of, okay, is there a way that we can get some of these into 4-H online legally and have that okay? Or are there things that we are missing that we need? So trying to figure out, what are our needs and what do we need to do to improve it? So that's been one of my goals. Kathy and I have met a couple times, and we have some plans to go over to legal and everything to have some discussions about things, but we are moving forward with that. Also, one of my goals is organizing and developing resources for educators and volunteers in terms of their roles as volunteers or their roles as educators managing volunteers. So one of the things that has been suggested is a handbook for volunteers. What are your benefits? What are your expectations? What are the policies? What are the things? And I like how Wendy is smiling here.
That was on my agenda when I became president, but like 8 years ago.
So I know there are
So it's a
documents.
need, yeah.
Yeah, I know there are documents out there. There are other states that have similar things. So I think, working with you, working with our 4-H practitioner group, working with Kathy, I think there's going to be the ability to put something together that's going to be beneficial for the volunteers, as well as resources for our educators in terms of how do you onboard them? What are some suggestions for training? How do you deal with certain problems as well? So those are also things that I'm hoping to get your input on too, because as volunteers, what are you seeing in your counties and what are the things that have benefited you? The other big thing is trainings, volunteer trainings. And I know every county has volunteer trainings, or some of them try to, but there are ways that we can do trainings and benefit everybody. So one of the big things, we have had our online volunteer orientation for years, and Lacey Ashby has been very successful in keeping that together with Sandy. So I'm working with Lacey, and our big push for 2017 is to reboot it and create a more self-driven platform. So if Wendy is a new volunteer and she needs to go through volunteer orientation, it's not going to be one day in that month that she could do it. It would be a registration system that you would get to go to a online webinar, kind of like maybe like AHQA, quality assurance, that you would be gone through all of the appropriate information. There would be questions you would have to answer, so there would be feedback for us. So making it more self-driven, easier to use. But also we want to know, how do we balance that with that webinar version for those people that actually want that, as well as face-to-face version. So creating a system to deliver that. The benefit of doing a reboot into a format that is self-driven is potential future chapters that could be included into that training. So once you've gone through your volunteer training, your orientation, and let's say I want to learn about animal science because I don't know anything about animal science. Maybe there's a chapter, another training for animal science. So these are the basics. I want to be a club leader. Oh, there's a lot to being a club leader. So there could be another chapter. So hopefully, our goal is 2017 rebooting just the orientation, but then hopefully in 2018 adding additional chapters, additional trainings. So that is our hope, and Lacey Ashby and I we're meeting next month to start formulating some of the things. So we have some meetings with Chrissy Anderson to talk about the potential of using the AHQA platform, as well as Master Gardeners have a new orientation that they're about to launch using a different but similar program, but it has some different variations. So I've talked to John Fromfeld, so I've been working to see, what can we do. Also, in 2017, I've already I'm involved with the National 4-H Volunteer E-Forum. So there is a group of specialists around the United States that is putting together 3 virtual trainings, and it's going to be general topics, but it will be an e-forum. So I'm on one of the design teams. I have dates. I don't have the December date because for some reason it's not in my calendar, but we're targeting October, November, December. There are specific dates. They're going to be set up where they will be broadcast from, whoever's the presenter on the design team will be broadcasting from their studio, their office. But the intention is to have satellite locations. So maybe Carroll County will be a satellite location, and then volunteers are going to be invited in, and there's going to be not just the virtual aspect, but a hands-on aspect of it as well. So the design team I'm on is for the November workshop, and it's going to be incorporating STEM with agriculture, or with our animal science agriculture program. So I think we're calling it stemming activities with agriculture or something like that. So anyway, the intention is that it would be not just, I'm going to sit at home and watch it, which is probably one of the opportunities. I have a training to go to this at the end of November about it. But ideally, it would be, we have these satellite locations where there are educators or maybe volunteers from, that are there to help engage the group in those activities. So that is one thing that is definitely coming up. We will be able to offer it to all of our volunteers, and there'll be more information coming out in terms of how we're going to set that up in terms of the locations and everything. So like I said, on the 28th, there's going to be a training on how we're going to be setting that up in terms of how it's going to be presented. So more information to come about that. Some other items in terms of training, I know we hopefully we'll be able to have a discussion about how are we going to move forward with forums and other trainings. And I've had suggestions from around the state in terms of doing maybe some single day, fun day, like informational sessions. So we recently had a STEM fun day for our educators. It was during the week though, so we didn't have any volunteers there. But the idea would be to offer days that would have programs offered that would maybe interest and excite volunteers, that maybe they want to start a robotics program, but not just robots. So, but I know there are several contests and events that we're hoping to grow. A lot of the engineering events, including, robotics is huge already, but small engines, electrical energy, bicycle. So the hope is to put together some trainings that could be almost like taken on a roadshow from one place to the next. So we could put together demonstrations and activities that could maybe inform, but also excite volunteers and kids at the county level, as well as educators. Because I will say in Washington County, I had no idea how to put on a bicycle rodeo. And that would have been a really easy one to do. So some of the ones that I've already talked to educators or key volunteers about, one is horticultural judging, because I know Cecil County is raring to share the love and share the information about horticultural judging. So I've talked to Susan Knight about that. Engineering, so Dwayne and I have had several conversations about that. I've talked to Willie Lance about robotics, doing some demonstrations about that, but also Kathy Porterfield has talked about Dog Skillathon in terms of, how to really tap into the pets in the counties, because really that's a huge area that could be a growth spot for a lot of counties. So I don't know if we'll get anything off the ground in 2017. I'm hoping to. I talked to Elaine Bailey about potentially doing a pilot down there. They're looking at doing an Ag Science Day. So I'm hoping maybe that could be our pilot, and then we could offer it, to other regions or other counties that we could come in and do those presentations. So
Just a reminder, if you're on the phone, if you could mute, that would be awesome. We are getting some feedback right now. Thank you.
So, and then the other two, and this goes to future planning. There has been talk, Sandy and I have talked about the potential of bringing back our VAST committee in terms of what can we do to strengthen our volunteers. I don't know if you guys know what VAST stood for. It was a committee that Lisa Dennis had formed, and it was called, it represented Volunteer Anchor Sustainability Training. So the intention was we had faculty and staff from across the state that came together to start talking about that cohesive and consistent plan for volunteers. And we had talked about, what kind of, could we create a master volunteer program that would require certain trainings and that kind of stuff, but also the expectation of trainings for all levels of our volunteers. So if you are a project leader, you should be trained in X, Y, and Z. Or if you are a club leader, you should be trained in X, Y, or Z. Or it should be A, B, and C, I guess, because it should be different. So,
what was that committee called again?
The shortened acronym is VAST, V-A-S-T, and it stands for Volunteer Anchor Sustainability Training. So the reason I mention it to everyone here is if we do recreate this committee, it would be nice to have a representative from your committee on that committee, just because you bring in a different perspective. And then also the potential, if everybody's interested in maybe doing a winter planning session to move some stuff forward for 2017 with everybody here, as well as maybe some members of our practitioner. We do have a 4-H practitioner committee that focuses partially on volunteerism, but also partially on professional development for our educators. And then we do have a committee that is committee of faculty and staff that is for everybody here. So it's the Maryland 4-H Volunteers Association committee, but within our faculty and staff. So it would be nice if, we could get some representatives maybe together sometime this summer to do some plans and future thinking. So,
Absolutely.
whew, so there you go.
Any questions for Jamie or Dr. Howard?
Yes, I've been writing my question. Just to go back to yours, years ago when we had serious budget cuts, our state money falls under the higher education budget. I think that was what it was. Where is our state money? Which section of the state budget? Because you said 7% was federal. I'm assuming the rest is comes out of our Maryland state budget.
No, the majority is actually county funds and then private dollars and so forth. I can't give you the exact percentage of state money, so I'm not really sure.
Because at one point it was, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it under higher education? Because they had us writing to the higher education.
That's where we are, yeah. That's
Okay.
where the funding comes to the university.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and
That's
then
what we
it's
were looking at.
dispersed
We were looking at the
the
very top.
university
Okay, so
system.
it's still under that piece of it, but then that funnels from, just so I understand, so it funnels from this higher education committee into the individual counties?
So the flow is it goes from, there's kind of two trajectories here.
Okay.
One is, if you think about campus, so we have the University of Maryland system, all of our sister institutions, UMES and so forth. And so the dollars come at that level, and then by system, within the system, and then it goes out to institutions. University of Maryland College Park receives the bulk of that. And then it comes to the various colleges. And then from the college, it comes to the departments, and then we are one of the departments.
Okay.
And our annual budget for extensions is around $35 million.
Okay.
So with that, so really, and then the county, most of our budget from the state perspective is salary. That's the bulk of it. In the counties, there's very little operating dollars that are actually allocated from the state office or headquarters. There are some, and we used to be like postage and all kinds of stuff, but and then the symbiotic relationship is the county provides like this building and all the utilities and a lot of the support staff and just to name a few examples, travel and things along those lines.
So those come out of actual county budgets, not necessarily county extension, but county government budgets? Is that
It's
what you're
county
saying?
government allocation,
Okay.
yeah, and then each
Okay.
county is set up a little different as
Okay.
to how that's
Alright.
managed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that. You were talking about, you're talking about the population core.
Mhm.
Does the population core and how you do your staffing, does that by any chance match? I know that at the last one we said that something like we have actually like 8,300 club members.
Correct.
local Club members.
Mhm.
So does that, do the majority of club members, are they in that core or are they in the outlying areas? That's
So-
what I was kind of curious about is like, where did that 8,300 come from? Because like, is that,
The
Does that
club,
match?
yeah, the club members are fairly well distributed
Okay.
around the state.
okay,
But we have, if you think about it like tertiary, so my top third, there's some counties that hold the bulk of membership. And I'm
Right.
speaking to 800 or more community club members and so
Okay.
forth. And those do tend to be more in our corridor here.
okay,
And then the middle are generally, 400 to 600 members. But most of our counties, our membership is around, 150 to 300, something like
Okay.
that.
okay.
So that distribution, but no, it's not based on that because the bulk, as we're aware of our membership, of total 4-H membership comes from outreach and
Right,
curriculum
right,
enrichment and
back to that,
special
where it
interest and
puts it
so
in the
forth.
core.
Yeah.
Okay. One point about hiring non-4-Hers, having gone through this with Anne Arundel County 4-H, we had a series of educators for a while, and we had some non-4-H who were professional, and I can say that they came in with an awful lot of energy and a lot of new ideas. So it took us as volunteers to help teach them some of the ways of it, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that they
No,
don't
agreed. No,
have.
it's not
So I
necessarily.
just want, from a volunteer perspective, say to you, to me, I don't look at that and go, oh, well, they don't have any 4-H experience. It can be a very positive thing, especially if they're supported by strong volunteers.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me pausing there, I could not agree with you more. I want to make certain that I'm clear that but there are some trade-offs. So we bring, they have a whole host of other ideas. The great thing about hiring individuals that were raised up in the 4-H program is that it's more of an intuitiveness
Right.
and an understanding, but often what they bring was their experience.
Mhm.
And depending on where that experience was, then influences how they might shape what they are pursuing. And so that's just part of our reality. So so the reverse of that is you don't come in with that kind of preconceived thought. And so it's like the sky's the limit and away we can go. And so there's absolutely trade-offs.
Let's see. Oh, how is it that shooting sports got linked with horses? Just out of curiosity.
Sure, yeah, I'll be as candid as I can be, and then I hope I don't get emotional to do it. But we have two projects that are very large, not to imply they're any more significant or important than any other one, but they are quite large in that they have multiple contests, educational experiences, and so forth. That is equine and shooting sports. So those two are quite large. And as you're well aware, the volunteer support capacity of that is massive to be able to support that. So with that said, we had a position where we had a state specialist in equine that was a tenure track position. There was that individual decided not to continue that, transitioned out of the organization, and we parted ways very amicably. But the reality is that position was a split appointment with the Institute of Applied Agriculture, and you're getting way more than you might have thought you wanted. But the Institute of Applied Agriculture, but so we had funding from both groups. So I had part of the budget, the Institute had part of the budget. The Institute of Applied Agriculture did not want to continue with that relationship as we had previously had it. That's a whole other conversation, but that's what we were faced with. So I didn't have as much money as I previously had, so I had to fill the position with a coordinator type role. So it works under animal science with Chris Anderson, but predominantly focuses on equine. I had to take also a portion of that money and backfill an adjunct faculty member in animal and avian sciences because we had students on campus that were counting on taking the courses that my vacated position had been teaching in order to graduate. So we gave money to backfill an adjunct, and they could teach those courses to get the children for crying out loud, they're grown, get our college kids completed. So with all of that said, I knew we didn't have enough money and we needed to hire somebody to help to coordinate that. My further reality was that being unaware to a lot of people, our late faculty member, Denise Frieberthauser, had come to me, and it was very clear to her that the end of her life was coming. And so she was very concerned about shooting sports because that fell under her umbrella, and wanting to make certain that there was some continuity because just of the sheer volume. I was also faced with the individual in a county-based position was about to retire who helped to manage that. So they do not pair together in any construct of mind in regard to other than the volume of volunteers that are required. But I knew that I needed to be able to put somebody in place that could shepherd that shooting sports process, and so that they don't dovetail this way. But I knew then we would have somebody that could continue that. Should something happen to Denise, which inevitably is exactly what happened. So that's how that came to be.
Okay.
So a whole lot more information than you might have thought.
No, but
yeah.
it makes sense, just
Mhm.
because I think that's, in terms of volunteering and talking about training,
Mhm.
that's where our training is seriously lacking.
Mhm.
For
Because
shooting sports?
I went from 10 to 30 kids in April, and I missed the one shooting sports training. So I had to work with the one shooting sports instructor I had and tripled my kids.
Mhm.
And I couldn't put anybody else through it because it was already over.
Mhm.
So if you
Understood.
miss it,
Yeah.
that,
We acknowledge that's a problem. And
Okay.
so
Mhm.
trying to evolve a very historically steeped group in the way they manage and the process. And as we know, there is a lot of safety structure. None of that is missed on any of us. And I know that we all value that. But there is a need to have perhaps multiple opportunities, but to get that whole package pulled together as a full weekend in the way that it's currently structured. And so the challenge of having more than one of those a year, however, thinking here we are in contemporary times, what are some other options? And just as Wendy's drawn attention to, if you miss that one, then you're out for a year. And so that's been a big struggle for a number of our counties. So we're looking to evolve that forward.
Okay, so that this dovetails right into that. What they do with hunter safety now across the state of Maryland, I don't know if you're familiar with this. It used to be, they had it where we are located, it was 4 hours on a Thursday night, 8 hours on a Saturday. That has now, there is now an online component. So instead of sitting in the classroom, you do the online component, you take your exam, and then you go for a single piece of like
Certification.
your
Right.
like your shooting
Practical,
certification part.
Right, the practical.
And so they can hold that more often because it's not as cumbersome, and that has been working very well across the state. So if you're looking at that shooting sports instructor training, that might be a good place to look at how they operate that, because that has been working very well, and it's pretty much the same kind of thing, because you're talking about risk management and all of those traits. It has other things in it, but I feel that that's a good place to see how that works and try to
Could
get
not agree with you more. Absolutely. And a lot of things at that training that are held on the Friday night, that's a lot of the, there's some things, could we do precursor modules and so forth. So there's a number of options with that.
Yeah, so, and that plays into your volunteer training as well, the same kind
Right.
of thing. That's sort of like that online component. So you have less things that you have to do, but you could have more days of them because they would not be as long or as cumbersome. And I just that kind of that whole aspect of, because when quality assurance came out, I had to take that, so I saw that, and that seems to have worked really, really well.
Yes, it has.
And that, so building on that platform with the volunteer handbook, with those chapters, I can see all that being a very successful way to educate more volunteers. And as right into that, what I was talking about with you, I think before, and I still think could work, is to have master volunteers in program areas that would act as like basically a phone call, and somebody saying, hey, I'm in such and such county and I'm doing this, but I'm stuck on this. What would you suggest? So we could have some of the more, just some programs, people that would be considered trained for master volunteers, and have that as like a hotline, okay, so to speak. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Dr. Howard and Jamie?
I just have a quick question. What is Kathy Portersfield's title now?
Administrative coordinator.
Oh, okay.
Hearing no other questions, we will move forward, but certainly please feel free to stop us at any time if you think of one, or hold them until the end of our agenda when we open up the floor again. Moving into committee reports. Our first is publicity, and I know Kara could not join us today, but we have had an excellent response from volunteers through our Facebook page. People have certainly been liking us. We got 2 likes overnight. I know the young alumni have their Facebook page. They keep receiving likes. Today we're trying the YouTube Live, which certainly seems like it's going well, and we could hopefully do that throughout the year. And then we are adding people to our Gmail listserv as they sign in at our meetings. So it seems like things are going well. Does anyone here at the meeting today have ideas for where else you would like to see publicity, or where you would like that committee to focus in 2017?
I don't know if this is where Alyssa would want the alumni card.
We could, either there or
With
the
alumni, yeah, I was like, but I know she had said that she was intending that young alumni card be taken and distributed at fairs.
Correct.
And that kind of stuff. And that was something I was thinking, it would be nice to have some sort of a presence at all of the county fairs, or, if they have, I know some counties do like workshop days or something like that. So I don't know if there's a way to have a presence would be nice, but have something
Absolutely.
out there.
I think publicity-wise, I think, Jamie, as you look to reboot that training,
Mhm.
obviously during an orientation to volunteers, I know that the association is already mentioned, but I think there's a role there for new volunteers to hear.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of publicity in the upfront, and whether we share the Facebook link or how to join a
Oh, yeah.
listserv. So it's publicity, sort of, but it also hits people early on.
And
I
we
know.
do now have a video,
Right, the
which
video.
we had not had before, so we are continuing,
Yeah.
and that's a
But-
perfect
But
idea.
having like where to find different information would be
Right.
really good.
Right, because
you know?
I always think of those orientations as like, what are the next steps or what are the action items, right? You sit through it, and you
Yeah.
watch it, but there's also that, and to learn more or to get ongoing updates,
Mhm.
do this. So just as we think about what that reboot
Right.
looks like, that's an opportunity. Obviously, you've got current volunteers who are also going through trainings or retrainings, and so there's also that chance to sort of figure out where strategically the association could be mentioned to our current volunteers, not just our new ones. But that might be more natural placements rather than something that sort of exists like Facebook, which is external. You have to go find it, versus places where volunteers are already going to be. So
Absolutely.
I like the fairs too. I think that's a great idea because you get so many people,
Mhm.
and it's a week, right? And at some point, people are going to find you or come by your booth
Exactly.
or host a special event. Could you do a special 1-hour reception at a fair for 4-H alumni or for 4-H volunteers, like a take a break booth? And
Exactly.
so there could be fun ways to make that work,
Mhm.
fun for us and fun for people who want to come through. So I
Exactly.
think that's a great idea.
Maybe even at State Fair, have something at the State Fair prior to our meeting, have some kind of
Alumni
change the
meeting.
meeting time or, have a bagels. Yeah, something like that.
Well, the cake auction
Yeah.
thing, I took part in at the state fair, and that was really fun, because we get to do things
Absolutely.
that don't get to really
Right.
do much anymore. The open class is one thing, but being an auction is fun.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
maybe linking that with something like,
Yeah.
because I
Online
entered
contests.
cakes, but I didn't get to see too many people who were entering. So maybe if after you enter, maybe there was like a little thing you could go, people, to get people together.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
making it like a community, because I think people, you join a Facebook community, once you know that community exists, it's easier to.
Absolutely. These are all excellent ideas. Any others for publicity? Okay, the next one is our nominating committee. Miss Arlene, are you still with us? Okay.
Or should
That was the squish.
Maybe muted.
Right,
Unmute.
right.
We do have 2 people who are interested in running for our positions today, and we will open up the floor.
Jennifer, I apologize. I
Nope.
am here, but like I said, I'm in the middle of serving food at the shooting match, so I'm listening.
You're fine.
Take over.
Go ahead.
No background noise. All right, so go ahead. Thanks.
We will take nominations from the floor. We will open it up when we get to new business. So if anyone on the phone or on our live feed are interested in running, you are certainly able to do so today. And we appreciate everyone who helped solicit nominations for our positions. And we do appreciate those that we reached out to who acknowledged they were too busy, but they all did say they would still like to be involved in the association. Our next committee is the Young Alumni Committee, and I'd like to invite Cynthia to provide our report.
Yeah, as Jamie mentioned, Alyssa has been working on, we've been kind of going through the card to give out to young alumni to try to connect them back in. And Facebook has been going well that was created. I think one of the I just lost it. Okay. The state council, connecting the state council
Absolutely.
to get the young alumni cards there, because they're having a meeting tomorrow. Yes. And connect with them because they're becoming young alumni very
Several of
soon.
them are.
So yeah, I think that's all that I.
And I know Alyssa shared she does have a list of youth who will be aging out on December 31st. And so she plans to work with our new Young Alumni Liaison who comes on board in January, since Cynthia is rolling off, to reach out to all of them in January and February and welcome them to the Volunteers Association, which will be excellent.
Do you want me to print out the alumni cards for tomorrow's meeting?
Yeah, I was gonna-
I can do.
Are there any
I know
questions for Alyssa and Cynthia as our Lung alumni liaisons?
Well, and I'll share this with Alyssa too. One of the things that Gabrielle Corey and I had talked about one day at the state office was putting together a little training / presentation to offer to University of Maryland students and not necessarily alumni, anybody that might want to be a 4-H volunteer. So we were talking about hosting something like that in the winter time, so maybe January-ish, in terms of introducing them to what are the opportunities that you could volunteer with 4-H. And I know Gabrielle's big drive is like getting people in collegiate 4-H and restarting that program. But that would be a great connection for the Young Alumni Association as well.
Yeah, and a lot of groups on campus are always looking for volunteer opportunities. And Caitlin's in the Civicus program, which you have to volunteer to be a part of it. So
Absolutely.
trying to connect them with 4-H would be really good.
Mhm.
Even maybe presenting to that program too, to let them know there's volunteer opportunities out there that they probably haven't really heard of.
Exactly. Well, and I've been not surprised. I've gone to some trainings on campus, and when I mentioned 4-H and some of the things that we do, even my peers are like, I want to go judge cookies at a fair. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
what
Send their name.
Get their
That's what I
names
said. I'm like, you give me your name, I can
Yeah.
tell you who to get in contact with. I kind of want to create some sort of a emotional piece that, if I go and I'm like at a meeting and we end up talking about cookies, which actually happened, and I said, I got to judge cookies. They're like, what? So then I can just say, here are your contacts.
Right.
So, or here's where you go to find contact. I don't know. But I think there's a lot of opportunities out there, not just for our young alumni, but
Absolutely. I'll just kind of echo, I think it ties to the young alumni piece, but so I work in volunteer programs for a university, and very similarly, this idea of flash volunteering, like what are the one-time opportunities, like judging cookies, versus the more long-term opportunities, like being a club leader, right? I think that, for me, I didn't have a 4-H background, but understanding like where are that sort of one day, 3 or 4 hours versus like years of my life. And I think for some people who don't have the experience, 4-H alumni probably understand the scope a little more. But for your colleagues, much like I would be the same way of like, I do judge cookies because I like that. Never met a cookie I haven't eaten. So, but I think that's great. I think knowing the and I know it's hard to get everything encapsulated sort of in one list.
Exactly.
Because some things also just emerge, right? We tell our university volunteers, I can't always tell you what opportunities will exist. I know generally, like there's mentoring and this or that.
Right.
So similarly, I think having something like that is a great resource that I think as a volunteer myself, I would love to have to sort of show people, if you want to get involved somehow, here are sort of the range, the scope, the spectrum. So I think that's a great tool. That's a really great tool to have.
Another thing for the Collegiate 4-H alumni program is to make sure that you get in touch with people that are actually at different universities.
Right.
Because I know that there's a couple people at Towson who are also doing Collegiate 4-H, but we never meet, we're not very active. And I know that a bunch of my friends that aged out when I did, and people that are aging out now, they're going to other Maryland schools, but the only school you really think of when you think of Collegiate 4-H is the University of Maryland. So it'll be important to try to incorporate all the different colleges and try to make all of them more active, because I love 4-H and I'll do anything ever in 4-H. So the other thing that I tell people is that if there's anything you want to do, 4-H has it. And I just recently went out to a radio telescope out in West Virginia, and apparently there's now a new astro kind of program in 4-H, so that's really awesome, and I'm a complete nerd about it. So I always tell people, if there's something you want to do, we have it. If we don't have it, we'll make it. So it's important I really think it's important to try to get out to the other colleges, because I would have loved to have more of a collegiate kind of 4-H part while I was at Towson.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, Jess. The other
You're
thing,
welcome.
I was talking to a 4-H alum who is my age the other week, and we had mentioned the possibility of doing an alumni feature series. So many of our alumni, regardless of their
awesome.
age, have their own businesses. I know one young woman who's my age here in Carroll County, they have started their own farm and produce shop. And so they could certainly be featured. They could give a tour of their facility. It would be an excellent way to help their business. Jess, I know you do photography, and so possibly you could be one of our alumni who are featured. And we have alumni all throughout the state. And so I think that's certainly something that I would love to share with Alyssa and whoever comes on next as the Young Alumni Liaison as a project for next year.
Was that something you would put on Facebook?
Yes,
That's
we
featured.
absolutely could.
As a way to both solicit people who want to be featured,
Correct.
and then obviously
Right.
pushing out the feature. And honestly, that's something that cool is something that, the college might pick up and then share with the Alumni Association,
Absolutely.
because I know they send out e-newsletters and magazines. And again, in terms of spreading that publicity, if a good feature story can be used in other avenues, that's awesome. And I certainly know just the Alumni Association for university has a real interest in getting alumni connected back to the institution if you're a UMD alum, but in general around advocacy towards legislative advocacy, which might be very important in the coming
Right.
years,
Sure.
to have a mobilized force of people who understand the value of 4-H and the good things happening, because anybody who's a good advocate for the program may use that in other ways. So there's a lot of, the benefits are long for those features in terms of making those connections. That's really, really, I think, a great idea.
Well, I could see that the 4-H Foundation would really appreciate that too.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Very
Yeah.
much
In
so.
terms of a value proposition for funding, to have these
Yeah.
stories of 4-H'er and 10 years later owning a farm, starting a business, hiring employees, giving that. So there's just a lot of great energy in already with the story. Never mind the other benefits.
And several of the foundation directors may possibly even be the ones featured.
That would be great. to
Yes.
feature them, because they are, they've been around. for-
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I was gonna say we could include it in the volunteer voice, because that would be inspiring to.
Correct.
Yeah.
In any of the publications that Amanda puts together, like the 4-H in Action or Clothing
Yes.
News and that kind of stuff too. So there's a lot of, there would be a lot of places for that, so that's awesome.
So I think that could really help the kids too, because they can see a career,
Yeah.
Even
Yes.
4-H, but seeing a career.
And we could
development
open it up
for
to
older.
both
Mhm.
volunteers and youth,
Yeah.
But seeing the careers that are possible.
how they use their 4-H skills
Right.
after they age out of the program.
4-H helped me find my college major, or
Right.
help me
Yeah.
define my profession. Or
Yes,
those are stories that are fun
That would be
to
amazing.
read.
absolutely. Any other feedback items or questions regarding our Young Alumni Initiative? I certainly want to thank Alyssa and Cynthia publicly. I know I do it often in email, but they kind of have paved the way this first year and really put in a lot of effort, and we are very lucky to have both of them who are interested in this. So thank you both. Volunteer awards. Miss Ellen, are you able to share a report with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hopefully we got lots of nominations.
We will not know that till Monday. Maria's gonna send that out on Monday to us.
Okay,
So, I do not know the answer to that. So Amy might know, but I do not know.
I have not gotten an update recently, so.
So
Excellent.
anyway, we're here to start Monday, and we'll have it all on Amanda's desk here in a few weeks.
excellent. Any questions for Miss Ellen regarding the volunteer awards process? I know over the past 2 years, we've put in lots of time in getting the applications in an online format and really going over them with a fine tooth to make sure that all of the questions were valid. And so I certainly want to thank everyone on the committee. I know I was CC'd on several emails and
There were still a couple little quirks in there, so we went back and reviewed it, updated again, so we think we caught everything.
Great.
Well, thank you for all of your coordination. I know it's a big undertaking, but we certainly appreciate it. Membership, Miss Mary.
We did get a few new members who attended our meetings as we rotated our locations throughout the state. So all the rosters that I had, I forwarded to Kara. So I want to thank Jen and Kara for adding them all to the Gmail for publicity. And that's basically all I have, except I forgot to sign.
So
Yeah,
sign sheet
I said
today.
the sign-in sheet here, although I wrote everybody's names down, so you guys can just-
Absolutely. And fundraising, Miss Gina.
All right, our fundraiser, I still have those magnets. I brought them with me today. I hope I have them all with me today. So if anyone knows anyone that wants any, or
About how many do we have left?
maybe 800.
Okay.
I don't know
And
if
we still
should
owe the other
consider-
half of the bill, correct?
Yes.
Once we get the
Yeah.
money.
Gina, do you want to send me a little blurb about those? I can put them in the next volunteer voice and maybe somebody would see
Sure.
that as an opportunity.
Sure.
And certainly if we do publicity at county fairs, like these are items that counties could sort of on consignment take and sell there. So
Say that's where we've sold most of
Yeah.
ours for our club.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think it sounds like a lot of magnets, and it is, but if we do some of the things we've talked about, there are some avenues before a forum, perhaps a year from now, to sell them, so I think that's, and it's important, right, because it's money that's invested in a product. We need to sell it to get that money back. So we do need to be a little more proactive with figuring out where those opportunities are.
And people still drive around with them on their cars.
Yeah, sure.
You see them all the
Card
time.
magnets they were kind of a fad. They're kind of in and out, but I think we have them. So the reality is we need to unload them.
Any other feedback items regarding fundraising?
Amanda had shared that there are still some of those ornaments.
The one to all
Yes,
this.
they're stored at the 4-H Center, so I'm assuming you guys are gonna want them for the gallery, so.
Excellent. Anything else? And I know it's not a specific volunteer association committee, but since Jessica Sizemore is on the phone with us, I'd like to ask her to share a little bit about the Diamond Clover Level 6 committee that will start. So Jess, would you be willing to say a little bit?
Of course. So after our annual meeting for the All-Stars, I was approached and I was asked to be the Diamond Clover All-Star Liaison. And couldn't have been more excited. So the position that I took on is pretty much going between the All-Stars who would like to mentor and help with the Diamond Clover position, or Diamond Clovers, and the Diamond Clovers, sorry, I was doing homework and now I'm trying to brain go back where I need to go. So I'm going to be working closely with the All-Stars and the Diamond Clover Committee, going to have the All-Stars be mentors to the Diamond Clover applicants. So we are planning to do online training through the Connect sessions. We have done 1 or 2 as it is, but we started a little late for this year. By the time we started, the applications were already submitted and they were kind of late in the process. But this coming year, we do plan on having different Connect sessions, either both in person and through the Connect, to help train the mentors as to what they would need to know for the Diamond Clover applicants. And we also plan on having some kind of a contact list for different people who would like to be mentors, and then people who have different specialties of where I did woodworking and stuff for my project, and other past Diamond Clovers who would like to help and what their project is. So if there's somebody from a county that's not from St. Mary's County, but in a different county, and they want to do a project like mine, I would be able to help them, to tell them what I needed to do, and where I looked to get my funding and everything. And the other thing that the mentors would need to do is basically just keep in touch with the Diamond Clover applicants and just make sure their timeline stays on track, that they get to where they need to be. And it's not necessarily that a mentor needs to be there in person or in a physical capacity. You're more than welcome to just email or call on the phone and just chat, just to make sure they're getting what they need. They're getting what they need. They're on the timeline, and that kind of thing. So the process is just starting. So we don't have a lot of information, but we do plan on sending out a doodle poll or something about when the next training would be good for other people and when they'd like it in person or in the Connect session. So that's kind of all I have right now. We have a general list of what we expect from the mentors and that kind of thing, but very baby process at the beginning of everything. So yeah, I'm super excited about it though.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and I certainly, if anyone needs Jess's contact information because you would like to serve as a mentor on that committee, certainly let us know and we can get you connected. And Jess, if you have any information that you would like us to incorporate in our outreach to volunteers, certainly let us know and we can post stuff on the Facebook page, and we can also add it to emails that we send through the Gmail listserv.
Definitely. I did make like a separate email for the liaison position.
Okay.
So I can make sure that they don't get like lost in my personal email. So I will send that to you.
Excellent.
Actually, I can do it right now. And I am in the process of trying to write up a little blurb for like the newsletters, but I'm coming to the end of my semester and it's a little crazy on this side, but I'm halfway done.
Certainly understand, and we can add that email address if you send it today to our meeting recap notes that will be posted tomorrow to social media and sent out to the educators to push to their county volunteers who didn't join with us today.
Of course.
Any
I
questions?
will type it up for you right now.
Perfect. Any questions for Jessica regarding the Diamond Clover Level 6 Mentor Initiative? Excellent. Moving on to unfinished business, we would like to invite Jamie to just discuss a little bit about the 2016 regional trainings and why the decision was made to cancel them.
Thank you. I will say that when I came on board in June, I was given the task of trying to pull everything together for the regional volunteer forum. Dr. Howard and I sat and we chatted about what was the idea, what was the thought, where do we want to do this, how we want to do it, that kind of stuff. And we got things rolling in terms of promotion and securing locations, trying to secure people to do the trainings. And unfortunately, with 4 months, I want to say, between June and October, things were progressing, things were working, but in reality, there was a lot more manpower that was put into putting it together, not putting it together, but there was going to be a lot of manpower that was going to be needed on those days. So each one of those 5 locations was going to have at least 4 educators or faculty or staff there. And when it came down to it with the registrations, that unfortunately they did get out later than I had hoped they would have gotten out. We did not have enough participation. So overall, we had approximately 10 registrants at each location, except for Allegheny County. Surprisingly, they had the most.
Awesome.
They had 12. So, I mean, that really didn't meet, I mean, if you have 4 faculty or staff at each location, even Allegheny County, that was like a 3-to-1 ratio, which is a high input of our time in terms of that, you know, what was going to be in the end, you know, the impact. So Dr. Howard and I discussed, you know, options, what could we do? And in the end, it just made the most sense in terms of time and energy and money. And there were concerns that had come from the counties in terms of, you know, what was being offered and how much time they were putting into it. So in the hopes of regrouping and maybe reconfiguring it to create a successful program, it was our decision to cancel those forums, the trainings. So not to say that it's not a format that may never be addressed again, because honestly, I think there's benefit to it. I think there could be some really good interaction from volunteers across the state that have never been to the forum. And I think that could only benefit this association and the 4-H program, where we're all getting them more in tune with the opportunities and programs. But I just think that the amount of time that I could dedicate to it and the amount of time that it was going to take to put it on, it just didn't work out this year. So it was a hard decision, and it's hard for me not to have a successful program, but I think it was the best decision overall.
And I certainly want to thank Jamie. She has been working very hard on all of this. And she was sending me emails, what do you think of this? And I was like, that sounds great. And she stayed very optimistic through the whole thing. And so I certainly want to thank you on behalf of all the volunteers for all of your hard work, because as soon as you hit the ground in June, this was your project. So
yeah.
thank you for all of your time and effort invested into it.
Well, and thank you for all your support. And I feel bad that it affects, your annual meeting too.
But we worked it out, and it's
Exactly.
wonderful to
So-
have people on the phone and in person and try out the new live feeds. So
Right.
it certainly
There-
didn't become a bad thing.
There are silver linings.
There are, absolutely.
I will say I've learned a lot from this process too. So one of them is you don't title a different program the same thing that it was the before. So I think that was confusing to a lot of people. So, but I do hope to, reform something like this in the future. And that's why I want to have a meeting with everybody and
Absolutely.
put heads together and create committees and really actually lay out a plan for the next 5 years and say, this is what, because I know what was decided and shared at the last meeting, but, knowing what we've experienced and ideas that have come up since then, what do we really want to do? So.
I think that the piece that probably would have helped this, but could not have been changed because of you coming in at such a late date, but is if we kind of go back to that old format one time, and then you use that where you've got a lot of people and a lot of energy in one room, and launch the next one to be that way. But I think if you bring it back together, and then you use that core group, and then you launch it from that, and you get everybody on board a year ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I think that
Mhm.
that I think you have to bring them back,
Mhm.
and then you have to launch it in a new format. But I think you have to bring that energy back together before you launch it.
Mhm.
I think trying to launch it cold like that, I think that
Right.
was just a disservice to all of
Mhm.
everybody involved. But I think it's a great idea whether we either move the entire thing from place to place,
Right.
and then start integrating one or two. So if you move it to the western area, then you have a location for that one single day on the eastern shore,
Right.
or you move it south, or you move west,
That's
and
a
just
really good
start
idea.
start with
Like,
single locations,
Right.
one large single location to attract more, and then you grow that incrementally.
Right.
But you've got to start at that core and then branch it out from there. I feel like I think that there was enough of a reception. That's something that's been talked about, and I think you could capture that at that point, and then stretch it out from there.
Well, and I don't think that's even been something that I've had a lot of suggestions, let me tell you, from a lot of different people. But I like that idea because it's almost like making a hybrid, but doing a pilot test at the same time and making it a contained enough event that it's not going to be overwhelming too. So I like that. So almost a
You
hybrid.
do, yeah.
Where I've observed some success for our Northeast Regional Forum. Of course, clearly we had the mass for the actual event, 300 plus, but we did have some components of that was virtual and very well attended and connected. So, a similar approach. And I'd like to interject, I don't want to circumvent I see that's actually coming under new business in a bit, but I'm looking forward to a really good dialogue and debrief to drill down to the potential, structure as we move forward, suggestions and so forth. Also, a really sincere look at, as we have it to do again, what should we do differently? I'm very, still very mindful of this as an opportunity because I felt it was in response to what I heard from our group here as well. When we had our retreat, there was a strong interest in and the concern that so many folks can't drive down, spend the whole weekend. So how do we create an opportunity for them I appreciate the group support in trying this. As I've always said, I'll own the decision to push it forward. But I don't feel I went that direction in a vacuum. I felt like that there was a good amount of support that was voiced from our volunteer group. So I really am glad that we tried it. I'm not convinced it was not a failure to me.
No, we had people
yeah,
register.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think how can we design it a little differently and get things, because I do believe there's strong interest in that. So I look forward to the debrief and so forth. And then, and Wendy, great suggestion. I really appreciated what you just had brought forward. And in particular, when I observed such wonderful success at the Northeast Forum using that type of a bit of an approach was really good. And not the entire thing. I mean, it'd be very difficult to host the entire thing, but there's some particular tracks that we could do virtual connections and people could connect in at their county office and kind of have a group or whatever.
Very true. And it does speak volumes that the most registrations were in the western part of the state. Absolutely.
I will say that had you had the tracks teachers or a little bit more information, you might have garnered a little bit more support, but I don't think that those were specific enough to attract attention. But given the late date, I don't think you could have, I just don't think you could have done more with what you had at the point that you started. But going forward, just knowing that the more specific I think you are, I can sell something because I can say to somebody, look, I've been to classes by this person. You are really going to get something out of it. So, and those are key selling points. So even if you just had names or just a little bit more information, but it is a little too broad, I think, to attract more people. So, because people get nervous, they go, I don't really know what that is. What am I signing up for? So just moving forward, keep that piece in mind.
Absolutely.
Any other feedback items regarding the regional trainings? Again, I certainly want to acknowledge Jamie and thank her. Any other items for unfinished business that people would like to bring before the group? Okay. Moving on to new business, the Maryland 4-H Volunteer and Awards for our Youth Gala is on January 15th, and it will be at the Maryland State Fairgrounds this year, which is exciting. A new venue because we've outgrown yet another space, which is a terrific problem to have. And so certainly wanted to make you all aware of that, to have it on your calendar. Certainly, we will be recognizing volunteers, maybe a few who are on the call or in the room, but just if you can attend, that would be terrific. I did want to ask, would the association like to have a table? I need to let Amanda know if we would like our display up again, or if we would like to have the ornaments and the magnets there to sell.
I would say, I would like to have a table. I think it's a great idea. But as far as the fundraising, all of that last year was run out of.
Say Amanda did it all at her
Yeah,
table and
Amanda
then
did it
just
all.
gave
Because I was
us
gonna say,
those
I don't,
seats.
store's going, it's in my spare bedroom. The entire store is, yes, it's in my spare bedroom, which is gonna have somebody in it. My son keeps going, Agnes is coming Tuesday. Is that gonna be moved?
But the year before, the association actually had their own
Yes,
fundraising table, and I thought that was really.
I mean, I don't see why it
It
wouldn't
did,
matter
yeah.
if you did that.
right.
It wouldn't matter. I don't think we'd care. Nobody would
I
care.
remember
I
that.
don't remember the store last year.
I don't know if
It was across.
I don't-
What's it?
It was a
like when you
smaller
first came in.
selection of what was at State
On the
Fair,
same
but they
side.
did have items.
And same side as the registration.
Yeah.
You register them before the store was there.
And then the
all
auction.
On the side auctions, yeah.
Well, excellent. I will certainly let her know that we would like to have our display up. Another fantastic opportunity to have the young alumni cards. People could pick them up and take them back to their counties as well. Excellent. Jamie, anything else you'd like to share about the gala from the state office?
One, we are going to be putting together another slideshow. So if you have pictures of volunteers, well, once we get the volunteer awards decided, I know that's one that we have a problem getting pictures for. So we need to work really hard to get those pictures in. But I'll be sending out an email about that. I know that it is, you said it's in the Home Arts Building, and Amanda shared that it would be a very well decorated. So it's not gonna look like what you've seen in the past, but we should have plenty of room. And I guess one of the other questions I have is, I mean, since the awards are going to volunteers, has the association ever given any like talk or given a little, you have? Okay.
So typically, right before we start presenting the volunteer awards, Arlene did give a small speech.
Okay.
Last year I did as well. And then what has happened the past few years is when we get the list of volunteers who are going to be recognized, the association sends out our own card saying, congratulations, you will be recognized. And I believe I did that over the holiday break last year. So certainly is something that we can do and send it from the entire association again.
That's good. I was gonna say, because it definitely would make sense to have some sort of.
Yes.
You don't have one.
Yeah, that needs to be, make sure that comes out, because that's always been an issue, is getting people notified. And I actually got some feedback some years ago about other people in the counties wanting to know that a certain person was getting an award, because then they would have come
Right.
to support that and
Right.
honor that. So
Absolutely.
making sure that people in those counties get that information out.
And now
And
that we
enough
know
time.
ahead of time
Right.
and the
I was
people
gonna
are
say, it's not
notified.
secret anymore,
Well,
so
that's
it
right.
could go in the
Yeah.
volunteer
Yeah.
voice, like,
Yeah,
in time
absolutely.
for,
Absolutely.
for,
Because that was the big question, is it secret or not? I know
it used to be.
So I know
and
that
it's
was,
not anymore.
last year we had that question of, like you asked, like, should I send them a note? Do they know they're winning? Like, but the reality is that,
It wasn't
Right.
a secret, we always announced it at the forum.
yeah,
No, they
So
never
then it
used to be.
Didn't get
It's only been the
transmitted.
last 5
Yeah,
years or so that that's
I'm
happened.
pretty sure we did, but I think we did it last year
Yeah.
because we didn't have the.
Right, we didn't have the
Right.
names yet.
right.
Yeah.
So the benefit
Well,
is
and
to,
then also, how do you, I mean, so I know that Amanda sends like a registration card to all of the faculty and staff, but you know, like, where does everybody else find that information too? You know, so maybe you can put
You know,
that
I
in the
mean, you might get it, but it won't tell you who's getting honored.
Right,
Right.
right. So,
Yeah, but
I
it-
think including
Like what
that
she's
is-
saying, not everybody gets an invitation, so
Right.
there needs to be that
Yes.
website.
Right.
to the
Right.
Yeah.
foundation
Maybe a
site
place
Yeah.
online to go.
That they can register.
Right.
Well, and even like if a specific county person has, Bristol County, like your City Divinio was getting an award or something, you know, and you want to send it out to the county, you know, hey,
Mhm.
she's getting honored, you know, this event, would anybody be interested in going to, you know, see that kind of a
Right.
thing, so that.
Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
gonna say, I think probably one of the reasons they don't do that is because of space
In the
limitations.
past, yeah.
sure.
So I don't know.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I think
Correct.
now since there's more space.
I say
Correct.
potentially
Yeah,
now that's
potentially.
an option more than it used to be.
Would it be something to consider for the future in terms of the volunteers, or like you said, contacting the counties, but maybe putting together something for those counties to give at their recognition night themselves? You know, I mean, that's a big thing. Or, you know, I don't know, you know, if there's a representative from the association that could go to that recognition night, or I know you guys all call it something different. I know we call it
Program.
achievement program.
But
There you go.
that makes it, well, when it's publicity, because you're getting a member of this association up in front of a group. And then it is always meaningful to get the award represent. Again, no one's ever
Right.
been mad for being thanked too many times, right?
Exactly.
No one's ever been
Right.
like, stop thanking me. So I think the reality is that could be a great second opportunity to honor that person. I think that'd be, that's great. So even if they don't, so for those counties that don't send a big delegation or can't make it to the gala, it gives a second chance. That's really cool.
And I
like
know,
that.
like our county, if you win at the county level, you're the one submitted at the state level. But then at like next year's banquet, or even in our Tribune, I don't
Right.
remember it, being announced that, oh yes, the Rawlings
Mhm.
family also won State Family of the Year.
Right, because
Make-
the county recognizes them first.
Right.
So-
Yeah, and whatever is written about them that would be spoken goes to the county, so
Yeah.
that it can be a blurb in
Mhm.
something, you
Mhm.
know, to
Mhm.
put it out there so that it gets mentioned.
Any other items of feedback?
I have one. I have the great fortune of signing all of the volunteer appreciation certificates
Yes, you do.
around the state. And I just was struck a few days ago, I was signing some, and there was a 50-year
Wow.
in there. And,
So good.
it's much more common to have 40 years and so forth, but anyway, a 50-year. And I have signed a 70-year.
Wow.
She was 87 years old. I made a trip down to the Lower Shore to personally give that certificate to that individual. This was several years ago. But on to my point, an idea I had was that for those that are perhaps getting a 50-year to perhaps have members of the executive committee of the Volunteer Association be made aware of that. So
that would
maybe
be
we
great.
just attend
Yes.
those
Yes.
and present those on behalf or
Yeah.
something
That would be
special.
very nice.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Because we looked into the cost last year of sending postcards from the association for 1, 5, I believe it was 20, and then above, and it was just astronomical,
Overwhelming.
the amount for the postcards and the postage, but
Mhm.
for someone who's volunteered that long, absolutely, that's amazing.
It's a great way to be connected to those folks.
It's interesting you mentioned a volunteer appreciation certificates. I never knew you did those.
Yes.
So that's something that the educators all need to know about. Some of them do, obviously, but we just had a 40-year in Washington County 2 years ago.
Yeah, they're 5-year increments.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You just send it down to the state office, a list.
No. See, other information that
It
educators
goes in the
need.
handbook.
Anything else regarding the gala? Our next item agenda is Maryland Day 2017, which will be held on Saturday, April 29th. It's always the last Saturday in April. The website is live, and so you can go on to see everything that campus is planning to offer. And I would like to see if the Volunteers Association is interested in having a table again. If so, what would we like to do at our table? So I certainly want to open the floor up for discussion.
Well, in the past, you guys have done the cluckers, is that right?
Yeah.
How has that gone over?
I think because of the noise, you
Oh, you
generate
get
a
a lot.
lot of folks, but, it is open to the public, so you do get a lot of people from the public more than,
Uh-huh.
4-H families coming over. But
Right.
I think it's a good way to publicize 4-H.
I say we have given out the
Yeah.
county listings.
And,
Right.
we've had those,
It's available.
we've had, sign-ups for 4-H volunteers who are interested in the association. Last year, we had everybody sign up, but
And maybe we even
Great
need to
way to
like
come.
put a label on the cup itself
That would be good.
Yes.
that has like the how to join 4-H, how to join the association.
I think Cheryl's point is really well taken. I don't observe, I think it depends on what the goal or the objective of having the booth is. And if it's general 4-H awareness or, I think that is successful, but I've not particularly observed it being a recruiting
Mhm. And that's what
opportunity
we
for
need
the
to do.
association
Right,
proper.
right.
And quite frankly, I feel the same way on a broader scale. I'm speaking of the entire event. I mean, I'm usually at our extension booth and people, they graze. They come in, they just want to get it all and stuff it in the bag and away they go.
Right.
And so where I see the most true interaction is at like the Master Gardener table. People are like, my grass is dead and, and all of this, help me to fix it. So I think just the mindset though, of what is it that we want to accomplish? And if it is in fact that, we're just, here's general 4-H membership. And by the way, 4,000 plus volunteers help to make this happen. I think that's a bit of a shock value to people. And, an awareness and so forth. And if it's just that's probably fine. It's, but there may be still some that maybe their kid is there doing something and they do want to sign up. But I don't really observe that being the objective that has the most success.
And I certainly agree, and I know every year volunteers struggle with, should I help out at the booth, or does public speaking need me more so? And I know that is certainly something where, Sandy, the last day is still, are there volunteers? And so I certainly want to hear from the group, do you feel that it's more important that we put our time and our energy there and giving back to the programs and the youth who are on campus, or recruiting for 4-H membership? Because I know a few other tables are there for that purpose.
It seems to me that the majority of the people that we attract, though, are not of 4-H age. I'll tell you.
Agreed.
You're really, you're really getting.
Stroller- stroller families.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Right.
It's stroller families looking for something to do.
Right.
It's not that 8, 9, 10, they're out doing sports.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a misdirected audience for us, really. I mean, and I think if you're going to pick and choose, support your program, because in all the years that I did it, which were many, it's not a driver, you know. I think I got the most interaction one of the very first years I did it, took a variety of the project books
Right.
so that parents could see what we offered and that it was there and that these are the kinds of programs that we have. So even if you did a static demonstration that had, some of the different programs, that we offer all these STEM things, that we offer robotics, and it could be a very simple unmanned thing with the county's programs and say, if you have a kid at this age, these are we're not just cows anymore, you know? So, I mean, you could accomplish that with a static display that was more something that they just pick up that single sheet.
So I have a suggested thought. The concentration of people that are more likely to be a volunteer is at our communications awards.
Yep.
And we'll have several hundred that come for that. So I'm not the one sitting there with the clucker table. So I mean, I'm glad for that to happen. I'm not being to imply
I just
otherwise.
almost feel like it's
But-
routine. We do it
Yeah.
because we feel like we've done
We're
it last
supposed to.
year, we gotta do it again, and
But
so I
what-
want the group to
What we
think.
could do is, it's also either in addition to, or instead of, but in addition to is certainly an option, but to have something set up at the tent, and even give a little time, for a Jen type person or whoever, to speak, to say, hey, we're over here, all you parents are here with your kid getting an award, I think that would be a good
That's a
intentional time.
Your marketing you gotta fit your market, match your audience, right? We're marketing to the wrong audience.
Oh, it gets
There you
better.
go.
Absolutely.
There's also, just prior to the communications contest, that's where Prince George's County has
Yes.
also been having
Oh,
our
right.
4-H Science Adventure Showcase.
Right.
And a very diverse group of families that come in. I'm speaking to ethnic diversity and so forth, and very engaged. Oh my gosh, their commitment to families is just amazing. And so I think that would be a wonderful opportunity to promote also. It's usually just maybe the hour preceding or something.
Something like that.
It feels much more intentional,
Right,
Mhm.
right.
and it feels like you're more bang for your buck, and it solves the problem of
Yeah.
if you need volunteers for that public speaking in the
Right.
morning, you're not dividing your crew.
Mhm.
We're dividing and not conquering anything.
Well, exactly. This sort of because it feels more natural. You got
Very
judge in the
true.
morning, get your
Yes.
break in the afternoon. You're there when everyone else is there. It feels probably like you'll have more success. So I think
Yeah.
that sounds like a really good attempt, perhaps for 2017, to see if that moves the needle on.
I don't think there's any of us, I'm gonna speak for all of us, I don't think there's any of us that are gonna miss doing chicken cluckers.
I actually enjoy that because you interact with the public.
You
and
do.
You're hoping to reach out to these
Yeah.
families
That's
that
true.
come there
You are.
just to get them involved in 4-H.
that at the county fairs though.
I can do.
If you really need to do them.
And again, if
But
you have a
yeah,
strong
yeah.
desire to
But
do
yes,
it, Mary,
get after
do
it.
it.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
for
but
sure.
to tell you the truth, you are not reaching
No.
4-H volunteers.
Yeah.
Because we only had a handful of people show up for a meeting, which was in conjunction.
Right.
Right.
Well, the other suggestion I was gonna give is you have a lot of 4-H clubs coming in and that are in that same courtyard, and all of them are bringing a youth and adult with them.
Mhm.
And how much interaction are you having with them? I mean, it would be great to go over and introduce yourself. I'm a part of the
I say a
association.
few, but
Right.
not a lot.
But I mean,
It's just a
imagine,
busy day.
It is.
It is.
It
It's,
is.
there's a
Absolutely.
lot. There's a lot.
but if you don't have, if you don't have the cluckers table, but you're going around and, interacting
Say
with
it opens
those
you
members.
up more.
Right, and then you're sharing the information about the association, but then you could also get pictures of what volunteers are doing, for your publications and that kind of stuff as
That
well.
leads back to, okay, clearly what they're doing is a public relations officer, like somebody who's tasked with going and doing that at those events. One of the things years ago that I did was the the yearly retreat that you had,
The spring retreat.
the spring retreat, I, as the president, went and spoke at the retreat, told all these new people, because you get people who don't know what 4-H is, you get educators who don't know the association, and I told what it was, what we did, what services we offered, promoted the forum, and then promoted the volunteer awards, all at that to kind of, because you have everyone together. So I just wanted to bring it up. I thought this is kind of a good segue, because you're talking about public relations. That's a good point to reach your educators,
Mhm.
new and new and old alike.
For sure.
And it, I took like a half an hour, maybe, not even that, maybe it was like 10 minutes or something. But it was, it was a drive, but I went out, they had it at Rocky Gap that one year. Had my dad drive me out, and we went out. Wrote a speech on the way out, and did a little bit, but, you had an opportunity to reach a bunch of people. So, because we stop and think, we're talking about how we're doing it, we also have all these educators that have to know us and be able to say, oh, I can refer my volunteer to this place.
Yes.
So that's another avenue.
I'll put it on my list to share with Megan. Because Megan and Sandy are in charge of the committee for the retreat, correct?
So do we have a motion that someone would like to make regarding Maryland Day?
I move that we concentrate on putting our displays at the public speaking events. And if we have enough to fill that, then we would do a chicken clucker. But let's concentrate on that one, with this one being, if we have enough for one, then we do the other.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Any discussion?
Jessica?
Jessica.
Yes,
Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing? Excellent. Thank you for making that motion, and it'll certainly be interesting to see with this new approach. Hopefully we can reach more volunteers. The next agenda item is the Volunteer Forum in 2017, which will be November 17th through 19th. That's the same weekend that we typically hold it. Jamie did tell me that the carousel has been reserved.
No.
I thought that was in, because we did talk about that and
We-
emailed back and forth.
Right, but it has not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no contract was signed.
Okay. Are we looking to sign one there, or potentially look at the WISP
Well, there,
review that was put in?
I know one of the things that I had heard from Chris and Sandy is that the carousel was getting small in terms of space.
Okay.
So if we are choosing, if that is what is decided we do to go back to Ocean City, I know Amanda has a couple other suggestions. There was one, and I cannot remember what hotel it was.
See, we've mentioned a
Yeah.
Yeah,
few.
we had the Grand and wherever Taves goes.
And I can't
Yeah, it
remember.
was
Is
the
it- Are they
Princess,
at the
Princess
Clarion?
Royale.
Princess Royale.
Clarion?
I think it was the
The
Clarion.
Clarion,
Yeah.
yes. Mhm.
So if that is the avenue that we choose to go, then we can look into another location. But I know that the contract was not signed for 2017 for the carousel.
I do apologize for that misunderstanding. Hello.
Just checking how long it's longer.
I don't know.
Dan's out there somewhere to find
Oh,
him.
I know.
By the
He's
way.
doing the same thing I am.
I'll give you a call.
About a
That's
half
my
hour.
husband, by the way.
I haven't looked into the WISP, but I know that Arlene had put together a proposal for the WISP. We haven't looked at that. There are concerns of dates and times and what else. is
Weather,
going-
I'm sure.
Other suggestions have been, if we want to try it away from Ocean City, is Frederick Hagerstown area, because there are a couple nice conference centers, so it would be out into the west. So, feeding on that, increase in interest from Allegheny County, potentially that could be a little bit maybe down the mountain a bit, as well as, there's a lot of facilities and other things to do about that way too. So that definitely
I
is.
like that idea.
I'm just.
Well, and because when I had looked
Sorry.
at,
Oh,
I had
it's
done a
okay.
lot of research for the bigger one, the Northeast Regional, and talked to the people out there. So The only thing with that one, if I remember correctly, is that it's the one in Hagerstown,
Okay.
the one, it's, they utilize like 2 hotels, I think it is.
Mhm.
But, I don't see why that wouldn't be, I think we could garner the same interest
Absolutely.
that we did at Ocean City
Mhm.
in another location.
Right.
I think that would be just as successful. I don't see, I mean, I think we could go anywhere with that whole idea, and if we could keep it at a decent price and still have that one day, you might get that one day to be fuller in, you may
Right.
not get as many overnights, but you might get a bigger one day if you move it
Absolutely.
Right.
into a Western.
And there's still attractions up there on
Absolutely.
the off time.
This is Samantha.
Mhm.
Yes,
I have a question.
Yes,
I have a
ma'am.
question. We're talking about November and we're talking about going to Western Maryland. What about snow?
that's a little early yet for snow. Yeah. I mean,
It's not quite that far, Hermeta. The snow isn't really bad in Hagerstown like it is a little further up.
I mean, it would be this weekend, effectively. It's
Right.
it's this date
Right.
next year, so you can't
You
guarantee
don't
it.
have to worry about snow in November till you hit.
Not in the Hagerstown,
Yeah,
Frederick
not-
area. I will say that
Okay.
Garrett County,
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah. Right.
I guess the challenge is just changing locations. I know
Mhm.
people tell us about it. They go, oh, we go to Ocean City and that's
Right.
the Maryland vacation spot, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like
that's your
half
only,
the population
Right.
goes to Ocean City and they don't really.
But
take
we had the
beach.
pushback
So I don't
when
know,
I
yeah.
said we were moving from the university, and actually the last year we had it. One day it was here. And when I was president, I moved it to Ocean City to
Yes.
try to get a bigger program going of
Yeah,
training
eventually
instead of just a
everything
meeting.
touches on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took, the first year we had like 178, and after that it was, we're out of room. So I think no matter where we take it, the first year may not be as fantastic as it has been in Ocean City, but it might be time for something new.
Well, and the fact that, we've outgrown the carousel, there's gotta be a change anyway.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whether and why not take this time to change to a whole nother location
Right,
for,
yes.
A year, 2 years, whatever,
Which we've been
what we
discussing
decide.
for many
Right.
years.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
Right,
it's time
that's
to
true.
put it into place.
Exactly.
And I think the idea of maybe you have it at a different location because we didn't have it, it's a really good opportunity to catch
Right, now
that,
it's a
Right.
good time
Um,
to move
to
it.
move it. And then at that location, then you put out a spot and say, hey, where do you want to go next year?
Mhm.
So you
Yep.
use that, and then how many of you would be interested in, if we moved it to a different location, doing that, doing these satellites?
Right.
We would have the satellite, so then you have the satellite at that location, and then you move it to another location. So you take the energy that you generated, because you're gonna pull from one days there, keep that energy that one day, make that the satellite, move it to another location.
Mhm.
And you can move it all over the state.
Now, I will say that the only drawback with moving it all over the state is gonna be a lot more planning, a lot more legwork in terms of the committee, identifying locations, getting
Right.
contracts, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, but I mean, if you
Yeah.
if you pick 3 and you rotate between those,
Then eventually
You
you're
can
gonna,
get-
Yes.
it would be the first initial 3 years that it's gonna take
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot to,
Mhm.
okay, now we gotta get this started up. But
Mhm.
it would be, honestly, it would be ideal to continue to rotate it, so it is almost a little fresh every year, because you're doing
Mhm.
somewhere different. But
Absolutely.
it's also, allowing some people to attend.
for that single day,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what we're missing.
Mhm.
So many stay for the night, we don't pull as many for that day,
Right,
but moving it, we might get more for that single day, and that's what we really want, because
Mhm.
that's the bulk of where we're teaching.
Well, that's the bang.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's nice for the social, but
Mm-hmm.
we want them to get the training
And
aspect of it.
yeah. And that seems to be the thing that that I've heard that it's really needs to be strengthened, is that training. So,
So if we do go somewhere, I can say that I'll promote it and make sure that we get, I'd like to see it continue. I went I think the first time I went was a single day,
Mhm.
and the energy that you get from being around a bunch of other volunteers at one time
Mhm.
is not something that you can replace.
No.
So it's got its own value in that.
Fair enough.
So between the people on the phone and in the room, and of course, we will certainly open this up to everyone who is not able to join us, is there a group of about 3 or 4 individuals who would specifically like to work on the forum and looking at other options with Jamie. I certainly know it can be overwhelming with many of us, so it's nice to get a smaller
I
group.
would do that with you. It's something I can't necessarily make.
For the many years of my mom volunteering me to do stuff, I'm gonna put her down on that too.
Good
that.
job, Jess.
Hey there.
Thank you.
Hey there.
Because that's not an area we've ever really gone to look at.
Where's Jessica?
No, we
Southern
looked,
Maryland.
we did look
Yes.
in, St. Mary's, the ship,
Oh, okay.
the
Did you?
ship was the one that we looked at, but it was
Which
too
was it called?
expensive.
What did you say?
Like,
Oh, there was.
Yeah,
we
you
went
stay
because
to-
on
we
the
did
ship.
Makes there one year.
We did, our
You utilize
retreat
a
there.
really large, it's a Holiday Inn property.
Solomon's.
It's a conferencing center.
Janet, this is Arlene. If you
Solomon's
guys want
Island.
somebody, trying to get somebody from each region, I'll, try to come from the western region.
Oh, that's
Okay.
a great idea. Oh,
Thank you,
I love that.
Arlene. What is Jessica's mother's name?
Jane
Burke.
Jim.
B-U-R-K.
Excellent. And then again, we will open it up to people who are not here today. It may be nice to have some volunteers who are newer and have only attended the forum maybe 1 or 2 years to also gain their perspective. So thank you to those 3 who offered to be on the committee. We certainly appreciate your time that you will put in. Anything else for the forum that people would like to bring up? Excellent. That brings us to the biggest part of our agenda today, which is our election of secretary and treasurer. Miss Arlene, since you're on the phone, would you like to do the honor of stating who we have for secretary?
Ken, I'm here, like I said, at certain refreshments at a shooting match for our church, so
Okay,
it's pretty noisy, so
no
go
problem.
ahead with it, so don't interfere, so.
Excellent.
Good to
So
go.
we do have one candidate currently for secretary, and that is Jane Burke. Unfortunately, she was not able to be with us this morning, but she did provide a piece that I will read. My name is Jane Burke, and I'm a volunteer and club leader in St. Mary's County. I'm sorry I couldn't be on the phone with you today. I'm scheduled to work and couldn't get it changed. I'm running for the position of secretary for the Volunteers Association. My 4-H experience started when I was 8 years old and joined my first 4-H club, Port Tobacco, in Port Tobacco, Maryland, a small town just outside of La Plata. I didn't even know that existed. I later joined a brand new horse club, the Mounted Wanderers, the second year it existed. This club is where I really blossomed and grew with the skills I learned in 4-H. I held several offices while in this club, president for a total of 4 years, vice president, and secretary. I worked in the Charles County 4-H office as part of my on-the-job training for a college course I took. I was nominated as a 4-H All-Star in 1977 when I was 17. I participated in leadership projects, Horse and Pony, Vet Science, and several others. I became a volunteer after I graduated as a 4-H'er and was a leader in Charles County for 8 years. Then life happened, personal changes, and being single and on my own, I moved away from 4-H, missing it terribly the entire time. Fast forward some years, I ran into a childhood neighbor who was interested in starting a 4-H club in St. Mary's that was like the ones we were in as 4-H'ers. We, together with another leader, started the Rope and Wranglers Club in southern St. Mary's County. Our 4-H'ers took advantage of all that 4-H had to offer, learning leadership, public speaking skills, and being a part of the Maryland Teen Council, applying for and earning trips to 4-H Congress, National 4-H Conference, state contests, and being part of state teams in national competitions. I believe I will do a fantastic job as the association secretary. I'm very detail-oriented and like to keep things organized. I assist judges at our county fair with note-keeping and have served as horse show chairman for several years. I would love to have a representative from the most southern part of southern Maryland on the association's board. Things are just a little different in Charles, Calvert, and St. Mary's, in a good way. 4-H has always been a major influence in my life. All of my job resumes have my 4-H experience listed, and I've had more than one interviewer ask me what a 4-H All-Star really meant. I can hold my own in a conversation, have tried to inspire my 4-Hers to learn by doing and spread the word of what 4-H can help you learn at every county fair. Thank you for your time and consideration, Jane Burke. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary?
I make a motion that nominations be closed for secretary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So we have one candidate for secretary.
Cast a ballot in unanimous.
The secretary can
Acclamation.
cast a ballot.
Miss Mary.
You just need to cast a ballot that,
Okay,
for Jane as
okay,
secretary.
we'll cast a ballot for Jane Burke being secretary.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone who is opposing? Excellent. So Miss Jane will be our secretary, and it'll be awesome to have that representation from Southern Maryland.
Abraham Lincoln.
We will
Don't worry,
now,
I'll call her as soon as I get off the phone.
Yes.
Good news to share.
we will now move into our election of treasurer, and we do have one candidate, Miss Gina DeGrenia, who is running. Would you like to provide us with a speech or some words?
Yes, I had it, started a speech last night, but I decided not to go with what I wrote. I'm just gonna wing it today.
You go, girl.
So I'm Gina DeGrenia. I'm the current treasurer of the Volunteer Association from Anne Arundel County. I started 4-H, being involved in 4-H, I think about 13 years ago when my 2 oldest started in the 4-H program in our county. Since then, I've been involved in 4-H. I became a club leader for a livestock club, and I'm a current club leader in an exchange program in our county. In addition to the club, I'm also an active volunteer in our foundation in our county. And outside of 4-H, I am a respiratory therapist at the local hospital.
Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer? Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer? Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer?
I make a motion nominations for treasurer be closed.
Any second?
Nice, okay.
Excellent.
You need to cast a ballot.
I cast a ballot that Gina DeGrenia is the treasurer of the Volunteer Association.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone who is opposing? Excellent. Congratulations, Miss Gina. The last item is our Young Alumni Liaison position, which will be open. Now that we have elected new officers, we will have an executive committee call sometime within the next 2 weeks to review the application we used last year, make sure the questions are what we would like to ask. And then that application will roll out, and it will be due sometime between the beginning of January and mid-January so that we can choose and hopefully announce who that person is that will work with Alyssa at the gala. And now this will bring us to our every 2 years. So whoever comes on in January will stay on from 17 to 19, and then we'll bring someone new in 2018 when Alyssa rolls off. And so certainly please take that back to your counties. Please let our younger alumni know that this is a position, because we certainly have work for them to do.
What's the ages for that?
18 through 25. Are there any general membership concerns that people in the room or on the phone would like to bring up to the group?
Okay, it's not a membership concern, but I just want to tell you that this is really cool because they did a shooting sports update. And Colorado has created a book that is how you bring STEM into shooting sports. And so it shows the science, the physical science, the chemical sciences of shooting sports. And so I've started to integrate that into my shooting sports. It's an excellent book. So just to show you that there's always a way to make STEM into everything that you do.
That's
So,
awesome.
They have STEM and sewing. I
oh
think
yeah,
there was a
STEAM,
curriculum
bought
in
that book too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Oh,
my
that's
daughter wanted to
interesting.
do some sewing, so, yeah.
They talked about that at the national conference, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other concerns that people would like to share or positive news as well?
It's not a concern, but
Absolutely.
the International Outbound Exchange Program was announced, and it should have gone out through 4-H Online. So I know it was talking about the outbound, but inbound will be coming out, I'm sure, soon, and they'll be looking for potential homes.
Absolutely. We have 13 Japanese youth to place for
Oh,
inbound.
awesome.
And this, for the summer of 17, they usually come and toward the end of July and are here through mid-August or so. It's a 3-week stay. And our outbound is currently on the street. Last year we had young people travel to Norway, and another one went to Japan. And there's other options, Costa Rica, some other European countries and so forth, but those are all summarized on our website for children to go out.
And our kids are going, where was this when we were in it? It's exciting,
Yeah.
so exciting to see this.
It's great. Well, and then with that noted, our outbound service learning opportunity to Tanzania, Africa will be offered again in 2018. We did not have any members that signed up for that this last iteration. We did more of a study tour, and we did take a former 4-H member traveled with me. It happened to be Joseph DeGrenia, Gina's son, and he had a project that he had been working on with a Finnish group on meat goats, or pardon me, dairy goats. The idea is quickly to share this with you because it relates to our volunteer group. The idea is that we would create a program where the Tanzanian 4-H members receive a dairy goat, and as it matures and kids and so forth, you theorize if it twins or triplets and so forth, they could either keep the doe, sell, etc., and grow that to a point that then they can buy a dairy heifer. And when the dairy heifer freshens, then they can join the Tonga Fresh Milk Cooperative. So in Tanzania, if you have 5 cows, you're pretty wealthy. You are very right. And so giving them an opportunity to build a livelihood and so forth is really significant. What we would like to do, though, is to create host clubs here to help to sponsor the kids to receive their dairy goat over in Tanzania, and then create a reciprocal opportunity for exchange of training and information and so forth. So that's what's kind of evolving with that. And so having the idea that clubs could adopt one of the Tanzanian 4-H members is what we're working toward. So that's one piece that's in place. And then the outbound opportunity, again, back would be 2018. And that it's my understanding from the current Maryland State 4-H Council that there's a pretty hefty, good number of young people that are interested in going on this next one. We are working toward getting the cost down. I think once we went over the 4,000 mark, it was a little scary. And so trying to keep it under that. Also, the great news is we built up enough dollars in our international fund because there's dollars that come to us to host the Japanese youth. And so that's used for midpoint meetings. There's just a number of things, all the logistics, et cetera. But part of that, we built up enough that it's my hope that we'd be able to give a portion of a scholarship or a stipend to help offset the expenses of the Tanzanian trip to some degree. Yeah, that we
It's
can.
expensive.
Yeah, and we do what we can. We have little payment plans, and we the kids can set up a funding stream where people can give tax deductible donations to our foundation. They can't go to the child, of course, but they can go to our foundation, and then our foundation pays the bills. But we're continuing with that.
Do you earmark it, like if one kid does it or promotes it, when they write that, do they earmark it to that particular child, or does it go to the?
It's set up as separate accounts.
Okay,
Yeah, they
okay.
each have
Well,
a
that's good.
separate
Okay.
booking. Yeah.
Earlier from last year, and when Mary read the minutes, there was a report from Gabrielle Corey about Congress and State Council, and I will share that State Council is meeting tomorrow as the end of the year. Hoorah! But the officers will be announced tomorrow. So
Oh,
there is a
excellent.
whole slate of officers that will be announced. Applications for state council, just for general membership, is due December 15th. And then we are already planning a meeting on January 8th to kind of onboard all of the new members. We're gonna do a training with the exec committee, and then we're gonna onboard the new members January 8th, so then they will be prepared to help out at the gala. So we're not gonna have a meeting at the gala this year, but they're gonna come to the gala in order to be, receivers or whatever. The Congress will be happening. We do have dates for that, and we've changed instead of starting on the weekend and going into the week, we're gonna start during the week and end on the weekend. So the dates we've secured, that Amanda secured, is June 20th through the 24th. So it would be great, I know.
My kids are still in school.
Well, supposedly they looked at all of the calendars, June 20th through the 24th.
It's the same, Montgomery County and PG County, both are
So are you
still
having a
Right.
Congress every year now?
Because I thought we said every other year.
Right.
So it is a-
I say it was a
That's-
huge
yeah.
success,
It was-
having gone as a chaperone. It was
Yeah.
a fantastic
So-
You don't want to
opportunity.
lose the momentum.
No,
So
that's
let's go
true.
and jump in on that a little bit, because even in the minutes, it's reflected
Right.
from the last conversation. So the idea originally was that if we held the volunteer forum in full face-to-face scale 1 year, then the opposite year, we would host Maryland 4-H Congress, so that these two major events, and as you know, the expense and the liability and what it takes to get it done, yada, yada, yada. But, so that was the original intent and was absolutely messaged that way. What I understand evolved is that with the success of Congress, and as Cheryl has mentioned, the momentum and so forth, the idea is to offer that again. And so that seems to be what's happening. So,
So, but it was great having people from the association
Absolutely.
at Congress, and hopefully we can strengthen that this year.
And there were several young alumni who
Mhm.
served as chaperones, and it would be wonderful to have more come.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, because my daughter went to the different team events,
Mhm.
even up to the last one when they moved it to the Eastern Lower Shore. And she said it was very well done. She was very impressed with it, from the standpoint of not being that far removed from it,
Right.
but actually
Mhm.
going as a chaperone. She said she was very impressed with it.
As a chaperone, I got more out of going to Congress last year than I did out of going to Team Focus as a team. Yes.
mhm.
That's great.
Well, I'll also share, so the state council has kind of been reorganized in terms of our leadership. So Megan Owens and Todd McKinney are the co-leaders for state council, and then advisors included myself, Kathy Porterfield, Amanda Brown-Clougherty, Melissa Welsh from Caroline County, and now I'm forgetting, no, he's not, no, I don't think he's gonna be necessarily a full advisor. I think that's all of us. So we've talked about how, not a whole lot's gonna change, but there's gonna be more, like, one of the big things is to have a committee comprised of other people to help plan Congress. So, not just the people that are on state council or on the advisory group, but other people to come in to assist in that planning process, as well as trying to be more mindful of roping people in terms of keeping the momentum going throughout the year for all of the youth that are involved. So, but I will share everything I can. So
That's wonderful.
Tonight, something,
Yes,
I
sir.
don't want to take away from the officer installation, but I did want to share that this last week, following the election, we've seen certainly a considerable amount of response and reaction, and a good amount of that has not been positive. And even in our state, which is, and I've seen a number of things that, of course, are very upsetting, particularly for children. And what I'm getting, and not just hearing, but I've received direct correspondence from 4-H National Headquarters, where it's being most expressed on a frequent basis is in our schools,
Yes.
of course. And the things that are being said, the bullying issues, particularly children of color, children who are part of our LGBTQ community, immigrant families. There's just a number of individuals that are regrettably being very targeted. in our adolescent community. So without politicizing the conversation, what I want to draw attention to is that 4-H is very well postured to be a response. And in particular, this is what I've shared with my statewide team on Wednesday. We are assembling a summary of curricula and project focus that can support this area. Global citizenship, we have a curriculum associated with that. We have our Engaging Youth Serving Communities curriculum that's empowerment of youth-adult partnerships and trying to create opportunity for issue discussion and addressing issues and so forth. We have, of course, just the very nature of 4-H and election of officers and that process and so forth has been a time-honored opportunity for youth to understand about civic engagement and so forth. And then, of course, our citizenship piece, which is very strong. So as communities may come forward with, if in fact there are strong enough concerns, there's both an interest or perhaps in our advocacy, we could bring forward that 4-H is well postured to help create a positive climate surrounding civic engagement in general. And we have a number of curricula pieces to support that. So I think we're certainly seeing more concentration of this in particular areas of our country and so forth. It's not excluded from us. I've had 2 horrible incidences less than 5 miles from campus in Silver Spring. It's just an example. So it's just right there. So, as we continue to work through this as a nation, I just really truly feel that 4-H is postured to help support this from a positive perspective. So if in fact any community approaches our volunteer group from the perspective of, we'd really like to host something and support, be mindful that that's completely acceptable. We do have curriculum to support that. Again, not the politicizing of it, either party and what we would advocate for, that's inappropriate, but the civic engagement piece, no matter what your beliefs or what your pursuit of a particular party is what we would want to concentrate on. And, we have a substantial amount of materials in bullying and the unfortunate things that are being both said and the actions taken against particular communities in our country is very unfortunate right now. And 4-H is, it's just a wonderful place to be and very belonging and accepting and so forth. And so I hope that that's what we can have a positive message around.
I think that's why we're still here, because that's what 4-H is.
Yep.
Way before that was even thought to be an issue, 4-H was just a positive place to be. And I think that just goes a long way with the program. Right. Yeah. And that's all it is. It's plain and simple. If you're coming here, you're going to treat people with respect. And that's what we have. It's nice that we have the programs that you need them, but I feel like you look at the volunteers and you look at the kids and you look at what comes out of it, and we're already doing that. And so we could be advocates, but we already are advocates because of how we interact with the public and how we treat children and how we raise children within the 4-H program.
Sure.
No, certainly. Thank you for that. As a teacher in Silver Spring, it is a very scary time for a lot of my students. I've been approached by many of them with very scary thoughts this past week, so thank you. Our program is the installation of new officers, and I'd like to ask Jamie and Dr. Howard. I certainly want Jane and Kara to be involved with this. Is it possible to potentially do our installation of officers at the gala so that they could join us?
Anything's possible. The first thing that spun was how do we work that in? So there's some logistics to work out. I will commit to that. Absolutely. Let's do that.
I certainly want to respect everyone's time, but I think it is important to have them there, and that might be an excellent way for people in attendance to see, since elections are done, the brief installation.
And we have the sort of draft script, and we can share it, and we can tailor it so that it fits in with the.
If you want to give Amanda that.
Yeah, because you can also how it tailors into some of the messaging you want to share
and
make it comfortable.
And also perhaps pair that around our awards pieces. Or, I mean,
Absolutely.
there's a variety of ideas. So yeah, we can make that happen.
So that brings us to the last portion of the program, and I certainly just want to take the opportunity to thank our retiring officers. Miss Gina, even though she's been reelected, has put in a fantastic 2 years. Cynthia has put in a wonderful year of service, and Miss Mary, who has been our secretary, has taken tremendous notes, both for our executive committee calls as well as the general membership meeting. So I just have something small on behalf of the association for all of you. You're welcome. You're welcome. If there's nothing else to come before the group, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing?
I'm gonna stay here for forever.
Thank you to everyone
It was a
on
good
the
meeting.
phone. This was a terrific meeting. I certainly
really was a good
appreciate
meeting,
your
right?
time
It really was.
and the discussion. Have a wonderful weekend.
Enjoy the weather.
Stay warm tomorrow.
I know, it says it's gonna get cold.
And for those of you that are
It is-
here,
it
the
is-
farmer's market
Yeah.
is next